Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Was Death's Favorite Child? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Misery, pain, anguish. Forget the man who hurt your mother with a fiendish smile. Don't fault him for the distant look in her eyes whenever she stares at you too long. Place no blame on the bastards who treated your skin like scrapped rubber, always scorching it and burning it and maiming it. Think of yourself as a stain, ugly and bleeding and red on pristine white fabric silk. Hold no grudges, but hold your breath. Wabbi. Izuku. Izuku Midoriya hears words whispered to him by presences that don't exist. Some days, he wishes he could see demons, bogies that damn him and no one else. Entities of pure, potent evil that are always by his side, sitting on his shoulders, whispering those words. If it were so, he would be absolved of all blame. All of his thoughts, his hatred, his pain, none of it would be his fault. No, it would be those demons, those bogies, those monsters that whispered those words. Maybe, in a more forgiving timeline, his wishes would be granted. Maybe, in some less fucked up universe, Izuku could see demons, could pull them by their tails and brandish weapons out of their hellfire. Ignoring the scathing remarks spoken to him by those evil entities would be child's play because then, at the very least, he was worth something, worth their weight and the weight of those words on his back. Maybe he could hold them, pretend they were friends and family and people he loved who loved him. And in that universe, they'd never abandon him. Entities of pure, potent evil. This is no more than yearning thoughts, something Izuku does not indulge in. Should he will only ever feel the sharp blade of disappointment drag along the scars marring his skin. Why so pessimistic, one may wonder. It is because people are bigoted pieces of dog shit, and Izuku is a labeled outcast. 20XX, the world is loud and raging and new. People are flourishing, backbones of evolution, of strength, weeding out those who trail behind. And Izuku, in all his shit-stained luck, trails behind. Izuku isn't smart at 3. He's something small, fragile, innocent and pure. He still struggles to write his name in kanji, falling behind his peers. They say he's slow, but Izuku thinks he's fast. Too fast. So fast he's crossed the finish line twice. Now miles away from it as he reaches for it for the third time, while the people around him are already at the track's end. It's fine, though. Izuku is a nice boy with these brilliant green eyes and a wide, pretty smile. He's so cute, so precious. You can't help but want to protect him. No one tells him it's because he has too many bruises on his legs and back and arms. No one tells him that it's because they don't want to heal those bruises because it would mean getting involved, and ignorance was bliss. No one tells him it's a way to relinquish their guilt because at least they're helping. At least they're doing something. So, the teachers pull him aside and assist him when his tongue starts feeling heavy and the words won't come out. He isn't brave at 3. He trails behind Kaken. Katsuki has too many syllables and Izuku's cheeks turn red with struggle anytime he pronounces it. Always a few paces too slow, skin a little too soft. He trails behind Kaken. Kaken, with these small little explosions that make the prettiest sounds of pop pop pop. Kaken, with this feverish glint in ruby eyes because he knows, the way everyone knows, how the path to heroism is carved for him. Izuku trails behind, kissing the ground with his palms and knees as he crawls, struggling to stay at Kaken's side. It's fine, though. Izuku isn't smart. He isn't brave. He's cute and determined and young. Hopeful, like every other kid, for a future where his bleeding heart saves. Life after life, person after person, wearing a smile so wide his cheeks ache. A smile like All Might's. A symbol. A hero. I'm afraid there's no hope for him. Izuku's home has never been quiet. Daddy is a strict man with smart glasses who brandishes fangs for a smile. Izuku knows that he is supposed to love his parents, his mama and daddy. He says he does and he knows he should, but daddy is mean and yells too much and he's scary. Izuku thinks that daddy is too scary to love. How do you love someone who's shown you nothing but hurt? Still, he tries. He comes home, greets Daddy with a smile, and waddles to his room. Daddy doesn't smile back. He yells at him, calls him stupid for scraping his knees, weak for the little bruises littering his torso. Izuku cries to him, "The kids at school are mean, Daddy. They keep calling me a Deku. They keep telling me I'm useless. They hurt me, Daddy. They shove me and kick me, and that's why I'm bruising." Daddy doesn't care, he never does. Daddy says, "It's your fault. You damn mistake. Stupid, useless Deku. All his fault. Always his fault." Izuku flinches when he hears something shatter. Dinner is in an hour, but he doesn't think he'll eat tonight. Daddy must be breaking the dishes again, and Mama rarely cooks when the dishes are broken. Izuku can hear Mama crying too, loud sobs as she wails at Daddy to calm down. Izuku slumps against his bedroom door, face buried into his knees, and stares at the little All Might figurine held in his chubby hand. He makes a wish. If he tries hard enough, he'll manifest a quirk that brings inanimate objects to life. Then maybe Daddy will stop yelling because Izuku will stop being a mistake, and Mama will stop being weak because she didn't birth a quirkless reject. All Might will be there, and he'll hug Izuku and Mama and maybe Daddy because he'll stop being mean and they'll be a happy family. He squeezes his eyes shut and wishes and wishes and wishes. He does this every night. His wish is never answered. Tonight, as he's wishing, the house falls quiet. Izuku notices the sudden quiet. He doesn't know why it's quiet, he doesn't know anything but that it's quiet, that he can't hear any screaming or crying, can't hear the sound of fists hitting skin or screeching or glass as it crashes to the floor and breaks like a motif to his parents' fracturing marriage. He never wished for the quiet. He hates the quiet. He hates it because he doesn't understand it. Izuku's never been left to the quiet. It's new, foreign, scary like his daddy is. He opens his door, clenches his little fists and quietly steps towards the kitchen. He's almost there, just down the hallway, and he'll see why it's quiet, understand why it's quiet, understand why he shouldn't fear it. A door slams and someone screams. Izuku's little legs are running, pushing, moving before he can think. What he notices, his daddy is gone. Mama is screaming, wailing, crying. There is broken glass on the floor and blood running down Mama's nose. What he notices, Daddy is gone, and it's louder than the quiet. Mama, she doesn't move. She's still bleeding. Daddy is gone. Little Izuku moves to her tentatively. He wraps his arms around her back. Mama, he buries his nose into her shoulder. She doesn't move. She's still wailing. Daddy is gone. Mama, he sniffles. She doesn't move. She's still breaking. OIBB. OIBB. DDYIS_. Mama. He starts crying too, less shaky, more silent. Mama notices him then. She cries louder, wraps her arms around his waist, pulls him in and squeezes. He's gone, he left me. He remembers these words so vividly for years to come. Mama said me. She said me. Not us, never us, right, Mama? It's only you that he left. He was never here for me. Daddy is finally gone. Izuku doesn't know it yet. Nose buried in her shoulder, tears wetting his little t-shirt. He doesn't know it yet, but Mama is gone too. His Mama is gone forever. Daddy left her bleeding out on the floor. A bullet wound where her heart should be. Izuku doesn't know it yet, but Mama will never hug him like that ever again. She will look at him and see the man she loved with every part of her. The man she loved so much it tore her inside out. The man who beat her again and again. The man who left. Izuku doesn't know it yet, but the day he lost his father, he lost his mother too. Oh woe, his broken heart. You look just like him. He can't stand it. Izuku is keen, too keen. Once upon a time he was young, naive and hopeful. Now he is 6 and he knows the world isn't so kind. It's been months. Daddy hasn't come back. Izuku works harder than ever, makes himself smart, and teaches himself to be observant and quick on his feet. After his diagnosis, the teachers stopped pulling him aside, and so left for the dogs he tries his best day and night. Vermin. Diseased. Worthless. No one offers to help, not anymore. There is no guilt for the useless. They do not slow down for him, do not wait. And the path he crawled so desperately to keep up with them is now covered with brick and cement stacked too high for his stubby little legs to jump or climb. Worthless Deku. A nameless face snarls. A kid with scales on their head and yellow scaras. Watch where you're going. Izuku bows his head, mumbles a too quiet apology, and steps to the side, biting his tongue to keep from yelping when a sharp shoulder bumps his. He stumbles, holding the strap of his backpack tight enough for his fingers to turn white. Somewhere behind him, someone snickers. And you said you wanted to be a hero? Oh, Katsuki. Pathetic. Maybe. Izuku sidesteps where the air suddenly feels too warm, the heat of an explosion too close. There's a sound, his eardrums pop, and without looking back, he runs. Izuku isn't athletic at 6, but he's trained to move fast, faster than angry boys with strong quirks and stronger fists. He runs and runs until his legs burn and his heart is beating too fast and everything hurts. Runs until he finds a small alleyway, wrinkling his nose when he ducks behind a full-to-the-brim dumpster. He stays crouched and silent until the little kids are too far away and he can walk home. Not for the first time, he waits for a hero to save him. Pathetic little shit. What's the point of showing up anywhere if you're so goddamn useless? Huh. Izuku is young, far too young for someone with such hopeful eyes and big bright smiles to cave and burn under the weight of everything and everyone. He is home and his mother does not look at him. He is home, and there are fresh burns, bruises and cuts riddled across his skin like they made up his design. He is home and sluggishly setting up dinner, his mother in her room, waiting to be called, only to then eat in silence, awkward, bruising and damning. 6 years of the same noxious, dull routine. Ma hasn't cooked dinner since Hisashi left. Izuku doesn't remember when Daddy became Hisashi, but he does know that not once had that man been a father to him. She works often and longer hours, says it's to keep a roof over their head. Izuku doesn't complain. She isn't there for breakfast, isn't there after school, but she's there for dinner, and Izuku tells himself it's enough. Lies to himself and says he doesn't miss her hugs and smiles and kind words, that he can't miss her because she hasn't left. She's nothing more than the shell of who she once was, an empty vessel making its way through the day unsure if it's still alive. Izuku hates it, but even if she's sitting on the line between life and death, at least, she's with him. He can handle the burden of pulling her to his side forever if he has to. Ma, he calls out, voice echoing in the silence of the apartment. Dinner is ready. No answer, not that he expected one. His mother will take 5 minutes to walk down the hall. 5 minutes of Izuku sitting silently, patiently. If nothing, he eats dinner with his mum. He'll watch her as she methodically slurps her soup and takes small bites out of her rice, movements robotic. But at the very least, she's there. Sometimes she'll even meet his eyes and won't look away. He remembers once when her lips curled into this soft, pretty smile he hadn't seen in years. He cried. It had been so long. 5 minutes pass. Nothing. Not the sound of the door swinging, of feet padding across the floors. Ma, he calls again. Nothing. Izuku thrums his fingers against his thigh, worried. Another 5 minutes pass. Nothing. Nothing. Ma, I'm coming to check on you. His tone is steady despite the rapid thumping of his heart. He knows he's hurrying, but everything feels so slow. The door to her room is closed, but it isn't locked. Hisashi had broken the lock when Izuku was 3, and though he doesn't remember, Inko does. She never fixed it, telling Izuku that it reminded her about the way he loved her, about the life he lived with them. Izuku scoffed. Hisashi did not love them, but Izuku didn't dare voice those thoughts to his mother. Ma, he knocks softly and lets himself in. The room is bathed in shadows, and when Izuku flicks the lights on, his mother isn't in bed. The covers are distressed like she'd thrashed in them. When his fingers skim the pillow, it's cold. Ma, where are? He trails off, catching the light seeping past the crack of the bathroom door. The water is running. He can hear it as he creeps closer. It's a good thing. His mother is just in the shower, nothing more, nothing less. Seldom does she shower without his prompting. Perhaps she's had a good day. Ma, when you're done, come for dinner, he says quietly. All right. Again, he doesn't expect an answer, but his shoulders drop and he sighs both languidly and in relief. He turns on his heel, ready to cover the food and keep it from going stale when something cold touches his foot. He yelps, falling on his ass. What the fuck? Water, he sees now, soaking through the wooden floors of her room. Overflowing. Ma, what's tinged? It's clearer now. The water is tinged. Izuku doesn't hesitate, isn't polite when he yanks the door open, the lock broken too. Shit. Fuck. Fuck. Shit. His mother is there, sleeping, still in her clothes. Sleeping, he says to himself again and again and again. She's soaked, her head limp and her skin the palest it's ever been. Her hair isn't up either, another anomaly. It's cascading down her back, wet and stringy. The tap water runs and runs, and she's sleeping. Doesn't make a move to stop it. The water is tinged, soft pink. It's a very pretty, very sheen shade that ambers darker the closer the water is to the bath. Izuku crawls to her, pants soaked as he sloshes through the water. The pink water. He's 4 again. He's 4 again. They hadn't visited the doctor. Daddy is waiting, and it's rare but he isn't yelling. Mama's there too, holding his hand. Mama, he whimpers, twisting the tap. He ignores the water in the tub. Red. Not pink, but red. Mama, he raises her head, but she doesn't move. Mama, look at what you did, he hiccups, crying silently. L left the water running. You hurt why yourself again, T2. It's really bad this time, Mama. Izuku stands up, rubs his eyes and sniffles. See, come on, you don't want Daddy to see you, Lee like this. He lifts her, unmoving and too light despite the weight of the water soaking her clothes. He sees her arms. He stares at the pink, puffy lines, the brown, pink and white scars. Stares at the red bleeding lines, the deep vertical wounds. Vertical. Izuku stumbles as he takes her to bed. He's still small and scrawny. His mother may be nothing more than ribs and bones, but so is he. His knees give out when they're out of the bathroom. His mother lands on the floors with a dull thud. She fucking thuds. People don't thud. They shouldn't fucking thud. Sorry, he cries, crawling to pick her up again, ignoring how his arms hurt from strain. I didn't mean to drop you. His movements are slow and he's shaking, but he doesn't fall again. As gently as he can, Izuku places his mother on the bed, ignoring how blood immediately begins to pool under them, soaking through the crumpled sheets and blankets. I'm just going to get some bandages to see clean the wounds. Oh, okay, K? He's shaking when he fumbles through the bathroom cabinets, towel in hand, bandages in the other. Her wounds need stitches, but Izuku isn't a doctor and he doesn't want to hurt her. His vision is blurry and he won't stop crying even though his mother is right there on her bed sleeping. She's sleeping. She's still his pretty, poised porcelain mother. She's just hurt, and she hurts like this all the time. Izuku will simply fix her bandages and she'll gently caress his hand and it'll be okay. It's routine. Routine if not for the way her lines are fucking vertical. She's sleeping. She's sleeping. She's sleeping. Ick. Ick. Izuku tells himself, just for tonight, that she is sleeping. Just for tonight, he'll clean her wounds again. He'll hug her and pretend she's hugging him too. He'll sing her a song because she once told him he had a pretty voice. He'll tell her to sleep well and sleep by her side, pretending she isn't going cold under his touch. Just for tonight, she is sleeping. Frowning face. Dear Izuku, I'm sorry. I love you. Your mama heartsuit. Frowning face. Hisashi still pays the apartment bills. Izuku only finds this out 2 weeks after his mother dies, and there is no eviction notice on the door. Deadbeat is useful for something, he thought at the time. His mother was cremated at his request, paid at the expense of her life. A deity's fucking irony. The police had left him to his bearings after the initial interrogation, believing him when teary-eyed and sad. He blubbered about wanting to grieve with his loving father at home. They did not investigate further to determine if Izuku's father was around, and since his parents never married on paper, didn't care to know if he was telling the truth. It's not like the quirkless were worth the effort. Not for the first time, their negligence is welcomed. Izuku doesn't think he'd fare well in foster homes and orphanages. He'd spent what little pocket money he had to buy a cremation necklace. A plain black rope laced through a bullet-shaped pendant with the word, loved, in kanji carved into the silver. Simple. The man gave Izuku a pitiful smile when he asked for the ashes to be transferred, but asked no questions. Izuku tossed the remaining ashes into the sea and whispered goodbye to his mother in another song he keeps private to their memory. The situation, Inko is dead. Izuku keeps it a secret he hides in that pendant and a single certificate he refuses to burn. The government tells him that she bore no will or assets, and Izuku doesn't bother calling them out on their lies because he is only 12 and doesn't think it's worth the trouble to recount the memory of his mother writing her will and asking Izuku to write his when he'd turned 10. Instead, he takes what little she saved in an old safe and a letter addressed to him that he leaves unopened. He has, if he's stingy, 3 months of groceries worth of money, perhaps more with how his appetite has dwindled. He cleans her room, changes the sheets and dries the floor but refuses to step into the bathroom, leaving the window unlatched and the door shut. His stomach churns at the thought of cleaning it at the moment. The last place his mother had been alive. The water will evaporate. The tiles will stain. So be it. He has school tomorrow. The new term is soon. He'll make it through. Somehow. Are we gonna see you in middle school too? You useless freak? How about a memorable goodbye? He introduces himself with a bow. Hello? I'm Izuku Midoriya. This school is far from his home, around an hour away, but it was the closest public one, aside from Aldera, where he knew Katsuki was attending, that permitted quirkless students entry. It also allowed for registration online, so Izuku didn't have to worry about a guardian attending a face-to-face meeting with the board. The lax registration speaks ians about the school's prestige. It's decrepit, built on a broken system with broken kids from sketchy areas with worse parents and pasts. The chipped paint, vandalized desks, and run-down interior only further cement Izuku's initial impression. The students he faces are different shades of rough, all jagged edges and skin made of leather. They look mean, and Izuku already knows they'll be all kinds of cruel to him too. In his opinion, the phrase, "Don't judge a book by its cover," is something some pretentious hobo came up with to play saint. The kids stare at him like he's foreign, new and unknown, a germ under a microscope, something they want to prod and play with. The teacher claps and Izuku flinches, startled. Any questions for him? Izuku lifts his head. A few students gasp. Some snicker. Izuku knows it's his new scars. They're ugly and healing, stark and fresh and large. One drags from his right temple, a large gash, slimming to a slit right across his eyebrow. Another, more brutal, darker and thicker, snakes up the side of his neck, over his jaw, and across his cheek. He brings a hand to his hair and shakes his bangs over his face, feeble in his attempt to hide them. What happened to your face? How old are you? What are you doing here? I've never seen you around this area. You rich or something? What would a rich kid be doing here? Why are you so short? Are you a boy or a girl? Where are you from? Izuku slouches. Too many people are talking. He doesn't know who to answer or what to say. One by one, the teacher's voice cuts through the cacophony. It's dull. A little tired. Izuku sneaks a glance at them. A woman, he thinks, with short red hair and white eyes. She's sitting in her chair wearing an expression of apathy. His stomach curls. She wouldn't step up for him, seldom people did. She glances at Izuku pointedly, eyes boring into him like he was no more than dirt on her shoes. Pick M. The students have quieted and are now raising their hands. Izuku locks eyes with a tall brunette with a disturbingly wide build. He points a finger at him, and the kid smiles like he's won the lottery. What's your quirk? The inevitable. Izuku's tempted to lie, to say it's a mental quirk and intelligence enhancer. They're easy to fake, and they'd peel away the blaring neon target on his back. But the teacher answers for him, her voice thick with amusement. He's quirkless. An instigator. He'd mistakenly assumed she was the type to turn a blind eye. Lovely, the switch in everyone's demeanor is nearly laughable. The curiosity, the prying, the eagerness, it all dissipates. It makes room for the disgustingly familiar smell of malice and hate. The hands fall, and Izuku doesn't need to look up to see the expressions his new classmates wear. It's always one of three: hate, disgust, pity. No more questions? No, you absolute cunt. Do you think they have any more questions? Okay then, take your seat, Midoriya. Right at the back, next to Kubo, she orders, pointing at a scrawny girl with dark black hair. She's glaring at the empty seat next to her, brown eyes narrowed, scowling like it took away her most prized possession. Students scoot, chairs and desks screeching as they leave the little corner isolated. It's better than when they purposefully crowded me in Tobiagaru, I guess. Izuku's steps are light, skipping over stuck-out feet attempting to trip him. When he takes his seat, he keeps his movements minimal and deliberate. He takes out his notebook, thick, flame and water-resistant, difficult to cut and rip, sewn with metal threads and well-worn leather. So class, after school, meet us or else. Got it, fuckhead? Life is meaningless. Ambitions, aspirations, goals, success, worthless in the grand scheme of things. People try so hard, so goddamn hard, to live, to see another day, to listen to the birds sing another noteless tune, to watch the clouds part and float, away and back, to fight with the same person they claim to love, to stain pavements with strangers' blood and shake hands with faceless strangers. Why? Izuku once lived for the future, damning the past and present to hell and back because he was going to be a hero. Come hell or high water, he was going to save people with a dazzling, too big smile and bright, hopeful eyes. He refused to accept that the future was already paved for him, a path bloodied and tarnished. Roads of rubble and broken glass, desolate trees and rotting branches, sunless skies and warm, humid air. He refused and ran the opposite way, mangled his hands as he fruitlessly climbed over walls and barriers, only to be greeted by that same, faded, bloodied path. He no longer feels disappointed or bothered or anything really as he sits in the dirt, caked in filth and sweat. His peers sneer at him, kick his side and laugh as he tastes bitter bile, throat burning while he's heaving on the sidewalk. He doesn't know these peers. He guesses they're third years, 3 boys who've taken an interest in the new anomaly that was Jinjista Junior High's first quirkless. You really are pathetic, Blue Eyes croons, punctuating the insult with another hard kick to Izuku's side. He gasps, breathless. They're meaner in junior high, crueler, stronger and smarter. Elementary school kids pull your hair and step on your toes. Stop when an adult swings by. They call you silly things like useless or ugly that hurt when you're 10, but Izuku's smart enough at 10 and he thinks they sound silly the way school children insults do. He excludes the parting gift they gave him on his last day. In junior high, they break your ribs and say it's your fault for existing, that this is your repentance for being alive. Izuku's still smart at 12, though. They still sound silly. After all, Izuku didn't choose to live, so why must he repent? Maybe we should add another scar to that face of yours. Huh? Musclehead lifts his chin with his foot and stares into Izuku's eyes. The hatred, pain and loathing burns, brighter than fireworks on New Year's Eve. Izuku hopes, for a moment, to set Musclehead on fire, and the anger is reflected in Izuku's gaze. Musclehead falters, his foot twitching and snarl waning. He does not light on fire. Boo. 0/10. That would have been fun to see. Turnip Hair kneels and sends a straight punch to Izuku's face, laughing as warm blood oozes from his nose, dripping and staining the gray of his uniform. He falls back, slumping against the rough brick of his school building. He's breathing too heavily, vision fading into shades of black, spots clouding the sky. How about next week? Yeah? Turnip Hair looks up to Musclehead. Maybe we can sneak in your dad's blade. Blue Eyes chuckles. It's dry and sadistic. Might carve up something pretty into the shit stains on your skin. Their freckles, dipshit, musclehead nods, snapping out of his stupor. Yeah. He looks at Izuku, eyelids half shut, bruised, bleeding and tired, and smiles again. Next week after school. Don't be late. Life is meaningless. I can't pay your shit anymore. Found a better family to look after. Don't contact me again, slut. Hisashi. Izuku doesn't think he's suicidal. He doesn't crave death, not as his mother did. To Izuku, death is another bystander. Another faceless, nameless, pointless stranger he will one day meet. When didn't matter, how didn't matter. Death would come for everybody. Izuku knew this undoubtedly. Izuku, rather, is at a half point, standing still, unmoving, unblinking. He's watching the world as it caves and twists under the soles of his feet in nothing but bone-numbing apathy. He lives a life of pain and boredom, hate and anger, fatigue and melancholy. This doesn't change as he's kicked out of his apartment complex 1 month after Hisashi refuses to continue paying the rent. Izuku sells whatever he can, hoards the little money he has, and looks around for abandoned buildings to take to shelter. And though this doesn't change, he thinks if death came to him now, as he lugs what scarce luggage he has down the weedier streets of Mizudafu, he wouldn't blink. No, he'd welcome death with an empty smile and dull eyes. Maybe it does change and he doesn't care. Or maybe he's always been like this, welcoming death, waiting to be embraced. Life is difficult and the effort of keeping one foot after the other is exhausting. These days, he can't help but wonder if his mother was like him, breathing but not living, surviving, camouflaged among the thriving, the healthy, and the trying. He wonders if he will crave death, the touch of its cold fingers, the smile of its fanged teeth. He thinks it's inevitable, as he walks and breathes and survives, treading the line between life and death, just like his mother. There's a difference Izuku ignores. He had been his mother's anchor until he could no longer bear her weight. He has no anchor. The place Izuku settled on during his month-long search was only a 40-minute walk from the school, closer than his old home, but in a far more dangerous area. In Tokyo, it's said the night never sleeps, that cars are always running and people never stop dancing and no one is tired despite the moon and stars. Izuku thinks this neighborhood, disheveled and dangerous as it is similar. As he snakes down alleyways and through small passageways, people are awake, animated and prospering. He catches a woman in lingerie and a faux fur coat dragging the edge of her long, painted nail down the arm of a burly man with pale pink cheeks and a thin, sparse beard. He hears the sound of angry drunks as bouncers toss them out of bars, the way they clatter against metal dumpsters, slurring insult after insult. Hears the music of the many nightclubs built in the area, the steady beat and rhythm, gently bopping his head to 1123. No one spares him a second glance. A kid with scarred skin and dirty clothes, tired and brooding. He fits perfectly. He reaches a tall wired fence and grins. It's twice his height, 10 feet of crossed, poorly twisted copper. Behind it, hidden to the left of the alleyway, sits a small house. One Izuku spent weeks looking for. It was far from an ideal place, with moss-infected damp wood and scorch marks all over the walls. The lock on the door was broken, and the weeds in the little garden on its porch were overgrown, too long and coiled. But the water system, miraculously, was working, though he'd need to clean the small water tank, and the electric box only needed a bit of rewiring and a source. It was hidden and comfy. Considering he was squatting, Izuku had no complaints. He tightens the straps of his backpack and climbs. It's a strain on his tired, injured muscle, and the metal bites into the skin of his hands, loose copper stabbing the material of his well-worn shoes and drawing blood. He hisses when a loose nail snags his palm, and swallows a yelp when the skin of his arm catches on metal rust. He'll eventually get used to it. This attempt was better than his first. When he hops over the top, he braces his feet and crouches to land steadily on a dumpster perched near the left of the fence, rolling off. Perhaps it's a little sad that someone as young as him is so used to jumping off fences and sprinting down alleyways. Izuku doesn't dwell on it. It's how he survives. He continues further down and makes a right into a very cramped space. The dingy house sits in between a bunch of other dingy houses and old stores still being run by owners with canes in their hands and shotguns underneath their booths. Izuku nods at the ones who greet him. Someone of All Might's size would struggle walking down here. A gunshot rings out, snapping Izuku out of his musings. He flinches hard enough to lose his footing, tripping over empty bottles and discarded litter. He picks up his pace, fumbling at the front entrance, stepping over weeds and dirt and clutter. The inside is as decrepit as he found it a week ago. Fuck my life. What a pretty spider lily. Is it mine? Izuku is small, cornered, and caged. He doesn't talk if he can help it, doesn't look up or raise his hand. He's meek, quirkless, useless. He isn't a threat, never has been. He's a monster. Izuku. Izuku creeps along the streets in contemplative silence, slippery fingers sorting through a stranger's wallet. It belongs to a recent debut, a new pro-hero under the alias Scarlet Rain. Izuku can't help but question the criteria it takes to be given such a title. The woman had poor spatial awareness and the observation skills of a newborn baby. Slipping past her was practically child's play. Yet she's qualified to protect the citizens of Mizudafu. Izuku finds that heroes who specialized in brutality were often lacking in surveillance, and he's long since gotten the read on how to avoid making quick-thinking, observant people his targets. Pickpocketing should warrant a feeling of guilt. Society sucks and people are tired of it. Scarlet Rain is probably tired too, but Izuku is and has been exhausted. He is and has been nothing but a dam of boredom, anger, and hate, so he doesn't feel bad or guilty or empathetic. Life is unfair, people will take advantage of you. That's how the world works. Emu Hero, he whispers the name on the ID. She's pretty without the obstructing mask, dark-skinned with a toothy smile and black eyes. Even better, though, she's well off. Or stupid. Either way, Izuku's win. Years of this charade taught Izuku the true idiocy of short-sighted thinking. Often those with bejeweled watches, branded clothing, and the naivety of kids with new money would carry more cash on them than they knew what to do with in wallets that would make a poor man salivate. Exploiting them is human nature, honestly. Tricky people like Izuku will use their skills, nimble fingers and silent footsteps, and take advantage of that idiocy. Unless an idiot dies, he won't be cured, Izuku mutters with a smirk. It's one of his favorite sayings. Shuffling into an empty alleyway, Izuku quickly takes out the abundance of yen and pockets what he can of it. The wallet is nice too. White leather with an expensive brand name engraved into it in gold. Can I pawn it? He turns it over, clicking his tongue when he sees the hero's initials also engraved into the material. It's customized. Damn. To think he could have sold it for a price only a few yen less than what it's worth to some desperate kid looking to fit in where they never will. Those pitiful kids are always far too grateful during those transactions, buying stolen goods using their hard-earned pocket money because they're so desperate to feel loved or belong. What a wasted opportunity. My wallet. He hears someone cry. He peeks over the alleyway, watching as an outburst unfolds. Scarlet Rain is a few paces ahead. Her arms are spread wide, eyebrows raised in disbelief. She cries, again, my wallet. Someone stole my wallet. The crowd erupts in whispered disbelief and proclamations of innocence. Izuku leans back and watches in amusement as the crowd grows antsy. He waits for the first accusation to be tossed, waits for the first punch to be thrown, to hear someone's fist break someone else's skin, for things to ignite. He waits to see if Emu Hero, if Scarlet Rain, will remain a bystander to the chaos and violence she welcomed or demand order the way a hero should. You must have done it, you were nearest to her. There it is. The straw that broke the camel's back. Izuku uses the disruption to weave through the crowd, close enough to slip the wallet back into the distressed heroine's pocket. He gently nudges the person to his side so they crash into her, knowing she'll feel its weight. His slim, unassuming frame makes it easy for him to slip by without notice. The loudness will eventually die down. No harm, no foul. Scarlet Rain will pretend all is normal too. She'll turn her nose to the speckled blood on the sidewalk, close her eyes to the bruises her new followers sport, and reshake their hands while skillfully avoiding their injured knuckles. as if, not a breath ago, it wasn't all ugly and sad. Izuku walks aimlessly, letting his feet carry him to and fro. Strangers stare at him with squinted, judgmental gazes. It's hard to forget that he's a kid from the tracks. That, outside of the alleyway and nightlife, he's different. People here don't know his long frizzy hair and dirt-stained clothes, scars, piercings, and tan skin. Their gazes start to feel heavy, and so Izuku lets his thoughts wander, a means of distraction. High school is in less than a year, and he's yet to determine where he'd like to attend. 10-year-old Izuku would have jumped at the chance for UI, the top school that birthed Japan's finest heroes. 10-year-old Izuku wanted so badly to be a hero, a symbol to save others the way he wasn't. But dreams are for 10-year-old children who can stare at the stars and imagine a future far brighter than their present. They aren't for those grazed 14-year-olds with enough bullshit in their hands to fertilize a garden the size of a football field. It does not matter that 14 is still so young too. It does not matter that 14-year-olds can dream, should dream, make a wish and pray it to be granted. It can't. Though he supposes he is smart in a way that his classmates aren't. He studies, day and night, huddles in small public libraries to learn and grow. It makes him feel a little less worthless whenever he learns something new. UI's general education course wouldn't be too bad of an option. Then, UI is one of the few prestigious schools that have free enrollment and offer lunch plans for the less fortunate students. They also do not discriminate, at least within their public rules, against quirkless students' applications like many other high schools. Izuku's also curious about the rich and privileged kids with pretty quirks that'll surely attend. It'll be fun to break them down, pull them apart and rewire them until they are no more than ant seconds from being squashed by the soles of his boots. A morbid train of thought, sure, but it's how he survives. Just barely, breathing and floating but not quite there. Izuku, raw and skinned and bare, is personified deception. He isn't deceitful but unassuming, and he uses others' perceptions of what he should be to his advantage, a weapon to brandish. It's come to be exhilarating, truly. He's learnt to fight and cut and hurt others the way they did him. Then they call him a monster like it's an insult. "This is my seat," some kid snarls down at Izuku, who's patiently reading a novel he'd borrowed from the library. It isn't the kid's seat. Izuku knows this, the kid knows this, and the apprehensive glances his classmates send the kid know this. Izuku doesn't move and doesn't spare the kid a glance. "Oi!" The kid barks, slamming his fist onto the table. His fingers are claws, morphed, mutated bone. No nails, just skin pulled taut into little points. It's gross. Izuku looks up dismissively. He doesn't recognize him. He's sure he'd remember someone with such fucked up ears. "I'm designating you the title of fucked ears. Move your hand," Izuku tells him. Fucked ears scoffs in disbelief. "You think you can order me around, quirkless? This isn't your seat," Izuku rebukes, voice dead as ever. "Plain, tired, bored, so move your hand. I fucking think, for fuck's sake." In a second, Izuku's grabbed fucked ears by the wrist, twisting it until he was whimpering pathetically. He grabs one of fucked ears' disgusting fingers and forcefully presses it into the wood like a knife. The boy's protests fall on deaf ears as Izuku continues to carve into the desk. Pressing down harder the louder the boy cries. There, he turns. To the kid, hand still on his wrist, relishing in the little tears gathering at the corner of his eyes. "Now it has my fucking name on it." He shoves fucked ears back roughly, smiling down at the wide-eyed, fearful expression he's given. He's cradling his reddened wrist, blood drying at the tip of his mangled finger. In the wood, scraped in shaky handwriting, is the name Izuku. He wipes off the sawdust, satisfied. Pathetic. Izuku turns back to his novel. "Mommy," a little girl wails, catching Izuku's attention. Her voice is far, a few blocks ahead, hidden behind the mass of people walking by. "Mommy?" Izuku isn't a hero, let it be said. He doesn't care to be one. He's spilt his blood onto clean concrete, scarred his knuckles and broken his thumbs. He'd rather be a monster. Still, if you strip him down to nothing, he is human. Disgusting, loathsome and vile, He is human, with a beating heart that's drowned in cement, fighting to stay alive under the debris and dried concrete. A heart that bleeds and beats, blood black as tar, for the children who cry and the houses built of ash and the people who hurt. So he hurries, weeds through people like a slippery snake, ignoring the affronted looks and glares he receives as the wails grow louder, loud enough to pinpoint where the little girl is. She's small, up to his hip, with big bouncy curls and even bigger blue eyes. She looks like a doll with flushed cheeks and pale skin. Even her tears, big, fat, and iridescent, look painted. Hello. He keeps his voice soft, his hands lowered and his stance approachable and unthreatening. The little girl looks up and wails all the more. She can't be older than 5. Please don't hurt me. I lost I lost Mommy. She screams, loud and scared. It garners the attention of passerbyers who stare only to walk away. It's abhorrent to think about how many of them heard her cry and did no more than watch, waiting for the person ahead of them to help. What if no one did? Could they handle staining their hands with the blood of an innocent little girl, all for the sake of their convenience? Izuku isn't good with comfort, reassurance, or consolation. He doesn't remember what it feels like to have a hand run through the locks of his hair and promise him it'll be okay. But this little girl is still crying. She's afraid and young, and humans are sick, twisted, vile things. I'll help you find your mommy. Do you want me to do that? She looks at him hesitantly, but Izuku can't smile, can't remember the muscle movements or the way his lips should curl. He can only remember how to bare his teeth. He settles on what he prays is a look of neutral reassurance. Eventually, she nods and waddles over on her little legs. She wears tiny heels, less than a centimeter off the ground, and it clicks quietly against the pavement. She doesn't grab Izuku's outstretched hand, instead latching onto his too long jumper and fisting the material. What does Mommy look like? He asks, slowly navigating his way through the bustle and crowd. She looks like me, but her skin is like chocolate, darker than yours, and her hair is black, the girl whispers. Izuku has to tune out the sound of cars and chatter to pick up on what she says. She's really pretty. Mommy is like the prettiest person ever. Cute. He stands on his toes, only 5 feet 2 inches, and squints at the faces, looking for anyone distressed and frantic, asking for a little girl. Where did you lose her? There was this hero who came. She was also really pretty, but she was red, not chocolate, and I wanted to see her. But then this mean man pushed me and I lost my mommy and everyone started pushing me into then her breath stutters, like she's about to wail again. So Izuku bends down and awkwardly pats her shoulder. She latches onto his arm with a free hand. Please take me to her, Oniisama. Her mother might be dead, knocked out, or kidnapped. But Izuku isn't an honest person, not by a long shot. And this girl is so small and so fragile and doesn't need to find out the world can be so unfair. Not yet. Of course, he says instead. How about you hold my hand, so I don't lose you in the crowd? The girl looks stricken for a second, like letting go of Izuku's jacket would hurt her, before carefully, gently, slipping her hand into his. Her fingers are soft, unlike his calloused ones, and he's sure the way his old bandages rub her skin isn't comfortable. He starts at a somewhat brisk pace to the commotion where he'd stolen the wallet. With his sensitive hearing, he focuses on isolating the bustle of the crowd for more distinct cries, picking up on the faint noise of one disgruntled woman and another higher-pitched panicking one. Bingo! He picks up his stride, mindful of the little girl as he shoves at bystanders, not caring for their indignation. When he sees them, their backs are turned, but Scarlet Rain is still the color of red, and the woman at her side is as poised and pretty as the little girl squeezing Izuku's fingers. Is that your mommy? He points at them with his free hand. The little girl nods, her face breaking into a big smile. Thank you, Oniisama. You're my hero, she shouts, letting go of Izuku to barrel headfirst into her mother. The woman barely catches herself before she peers down at her daughter. Her panic edges away, relief bleeding out of her as she bends down to carefully wrap her daughter in a hug. Emu Hero slumps like the weight of the world has been lifted off her shoulders. The little girl is pointing a chubby finger in Izuku's direction, her mother and the hero following her line of vision. They see Izuku, the scars on his face, bandages on his arms and the stains on his clothes, and grimace. Privately, Izuku wonders how they'd react to him being quirkless. He walks away before they can scrutinize him any further, into the crowd and out of sight. A hero? He remembers a time when the word would make him jump and blush and probably sparkle like a 90s anime character being asked out by the love of their life. Today his lips quirk into an amused, caustic smile as he makes his way over to the shabbier part of town. To the nearest tattoo parlor where he'll shake hands with the ex-convict who overlooked his age. To the alleyway where he'll greet the fruit vendor who taught him about money laundering and the fish market that druggies would frequent as they asked for raw tuna. No bone but save the eye please. To the convenience store where he wiped off expiration dates of canned items for a free jug of orange juice and a pack of cigarettes. It was a pipe dream. Izuku's no fucking hero. You the quirkless freak? A no-face third year with reedy hair asks with a snarl. Izuku doesn't flinch, spine ramrod straight and expression passive. What do you think, shithead? He's at his desk, bag at his side, apathetic if not for how his nails curl into his palms. His classmates have long since taken to leaving him alone. Monster, they called him. He likes it. Izuku stays quiet. Answer him. The other one with red eyes crimson with ash blonde hair, reeking of burnt sugar and gasoline and black hair, slams his fist against Izuku's desk, denting the damaged, inked, scorched wood. Izuku bites back a sigh. The desk won't hold up much longer, and Izuku is tired of having to rescrew the legs or reglue and replace the wood. It's not like the school would provide him with a new desk. Even if he wasn't quirkless, they barely have the budget to hire enough teaching staff. Izuku's phys ed teacher is his English and art teacher as well. You know, I heard the rumors, says the last of three, a girl with protruding rabbit teeth. Why is it always three? Is it because 666 is Satan's number? Kids called you terrifying and... What was it? Monstrous? Said just yesterday you carved your name into a desk. All scary like, rabbit teeth Snickers. The noise as ugly as her. All I see is a pathetic little twerp. Izuku doesn't dignify them a response. You're gonna ignore us, huh? Red Ice shows his teeth. Think you're better or something? Did I fucking say that? Izuku tilts his head. Long hair shielding his eyes. Movements obvious but quick. Red Ice jerks like he's been hit, and Izuku suppresses a smirk. Here he is hideous. Here, he will chase after adrenaline highs with little remorse and restless fingers. Here, he will remember what it feels like to use broken bones to fight and snarl like the menace he is. Here and everywhere. Here and always. What is it? Got something to say? Reedy taunts, then say it. Izuku doesn't. They don't like that. They don't like it when he talks either. They hurt him. They bring needles to his lips and try to sew them shut only to rip the stitches away with their claws. They don't want Izuku to listen. They want him to mess up. They want him to hurt. It's funny, morbidly funny, how Izuku always messes up. Even when he listens, he messes up. When Izuku smells ozone he, without thinking, pushes backwards, kicking off the floor and smacking his head against the tile, the chair clattering in tune with the ringing in his head. Above him, he hears the sound of something sparking, singeing the wood of his desk. Izuku rolls to the side as the same hand shoots for his head, quickly pulling himself up. Reedy scowls. Quit moving around, fucker. Izuku turns on his heel, walking out of the classroom without so much as glancing at the students. The audacity leaves them stunned for a few seconds, before Red Ice curses, barking at the other two to follow as Izuku turns the corner. He picks up his pace, still relatively mellow, too lazy to exert much energy. Just get off school grounds to deal with it. Off school grounds because teachers will not get involved and Izuku won't get into trouble for being a quirkless, worthless nuisance. When the sound of shoes hitting hard against the school floors nears, Izuku takes an abrupt turn to the nearest window and makes quick of undoing the latch. He keeps his eyes forward, stepping over the railing and landing in a crouch. It's a short, easy two-story drop. He doesn't stumble when he lands, movements graceful and elegant. Practiced. He's insane. Jumped out of the fucking window. Rabbit Teeth yelps in that deafening nasally voice. Izuku spares them a look. 3 heads stuck out of the window, equal parts enraged and flabbergasted. He stands and waits to see if they follow him out. Shame he left his backpack. Not that it mattered. Not only was it empty save for a few bandages and some gauze, but it was also last week's dumpster dive after a student set another one on fire. He spent one too many lunches in detention for stolen, ruined homework, and has spent too many yen on new books and stationery. Ugh. I'm going to have to look for a new replacement. He's sizing us up. Red Ice yells, shoving his friends off and sprinting down the stairs. The other 2 are at his tail in a matter of seconds. Izuku's shoulders drop and he begins a leisurely pace to the school gates, intending to keep himself in their line of vision for as long as possible. They follow him, follow and follow, predators searching for prey. Hurry the fuck up. Izuku waits. Rolls his heels, pulls his hands out of his pockets, secures his phone where he'd sewn a makeshift button in his front pocket and prays it doesn't slip and shatter. Izuku decides Red Eyes and his goons are close enough when Red Eyes yells, "You're dead, bastard." Izuku steps back, bends his knees and runs. The wind whips around him. It pushes his hair out of his eyes. He breathes slowly, his heart rate picking up at a steady, even pace. He zeroes in on it, deafening himself to everything else. Muffled and almost static-like, he can hear the voice of the 3 assholes yelling at each other to speed up. He runs, shoving past blameless bystanders without so much as glancing in their direction. He makes a point to step over children but haul their parents, looking for an alleyway, a cave, or a bridge. Somewhere far away from his house, too far for the 3 musketeers to connect him to his alleyway. He feels it in his muscles, his bones, the strain and effort. He isn't built and strong, but lean and nimble with a whipcord body. He hears his heart in his ears, his breath labored and hard as he pushes to run. The bullies follow him, chasing him for the better part of 20 minutes. Izuku sees it, a tunnel, caved in gray and secluded, lined with bright yellow dumpsters, graffiti-clad. He slumps against the wall, catches his breath and waits for them. He tucks in his hair and schools his expression, doing his best to look passive. He spots a piece of discarded metal, akin to a broken rod, small but thick, and lifts it, weighs it in his palms, tossing it from left to right. When the bullies turn the corner, Izuku's brandishing nothing but the dented metal and a cool look. They're ragged and worn down from running, faces red and sweat catching the sun's reflection. Izuku internally doesn't fare much better, but he refuses to let it show. They take a minute, clutching the fabrics of their shirts as if to calm their hearts. Izuku doesn't understand why. He only feels free when his heart hurts and his muscles ache. Only feels free when death brushes the hair on his neck and whispers sweet nothings. Finally stopped running. Freak? Izuku breaks his silence. Why don't you kill me? He provokes, sporting a frightening grin. He tilts his head and the sun catches his gaze, reflecting a gleam in his eyes that's practically criminal. Rabbit Teeth recoils, hunching her shoulders, sneer faltering. What the fuck? Come on now. He blinks, slowly, loosening his shoulders and tapping the metal rod against the road. I dare you. Here, Izuku is supposed to tell you that he played the part of a hero. Here, Izuku is supposed to lie and say he let the 3 kids who chased him beat him bruised and bloody because Izuku wants to be a hero and heroes know better than to fight fire with blood. Here, Izuku plays the victim. Is the victim. Here, Izuku cowers and waits for someone to save him. Some colorful person in a cape or a suit, latex or spandex, or even a shirt and jeans. And here he will proudly say I was a hero because he did not touch them, did not speak to them, did not hurt them, the same way they did him. Here, Izuku tells you he is no hero, he is no villain. Here, he tells you he's a fucked up kid with an addiction to adrenaline and pain. Here, he tells you he isn't a survivor, that he doesn't remember what it means to live. Here, he tells you that he is a monster. He does not do what he is supposed to, because here now he chooses not to be a liar. Tada. When he leaves the alleyway, Tada Satoru feels like death embodied. His bones don't ache, they're hollow. Like he's floating, mindless and unconscious, feet moving one after the other. He isn't aware, nor is he inattentive. His jaw throbs, and when he schemes his fingers over it, he flinches, feeling an ever-growing lump, swelling and hurting and probably purpling. To his right, Mika is crying, fat tears streaming down her dirted cheeks, bottom lips quivering, braces prodding the skin. Her hair, always neat, tidy and slicked back, dances with the wind, a nest on her head. Her eye is deep and bruised, swollen. Ahead of him, Uchida scowls at the ground. His knuckles are scraped and grisly, and for a moment, Tada is washed over with satisfaction. Uchida then tilts his head to the side, glaring at the pavement, and on his cheek, there's a gash the size of Tada's palm. Blood is still spilling down his jaw and leaking into his hair. We never approach him ever again, Uchida says. Got it? Got it, they reply in sync. Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. Just a quirkless run. Huh? Monsters don't wear masks. They don't hide in plain sight. They don't seek people out. They walk with their backs hunched and eyes cast down. They walk like they're nothing, until stupid boys and girls claw at them, try to strike, to make them bleed. Stupid boys and girls who smile in triumph as the monster lets them tear at their clothes and skin. And then they smile, tenacious, ferocious, hungry. Izuku Midoriya undoubtedly is a monster. May God bless those who cross him with mercy. Izuku. When the three idiots leave, Izuku looks worse for wear. His hair is a mess. Cuts litter his arms and bruises are already blossoming across his skin. He spits out phlegm and blood from when he bit his tongue and grimaces in disgust. He glares at the electrocution marks cuffing his wrist and slumps forward as exhaustion starts to set. Still, he sports a wicked but small smile. Undefeated and unkillable yet again. Is practically a curse. The thought is a little bitter despite his victory. Leaning against the dumpster, he mistakenly drops his guard as he gathers his bearings. He's too worn out to hear it, to notice it as it slithers over to him. He only realizes something's amiss when it's climbing his skin. It's cold and wet, like jello and slime, crawling under his clothes. Izuku's coated to his neck within seconds. He struggles, body writhing in an attempt to free himself. In his peripherals, he catches the sight of tawny teeth and puss-yellow eyes, making up an expression of pure glee. There is no face, just a heap of slime. The thing says something, voice like sandpaper rubbing smooth plaster. It makes Izuku cringe. I'm saved. You're my hero. The sludge climbs into his nose and forces itself down his throat. Izuku's drowning. Knows the burn in his lungs and the way his body fights, desperately, to breathe. His muscles go lax, the pressure and pain in his head unbearable. He screams and it goes unheard. It takes a few minutes for him to stop struggling, repressing every instinct roaring at him to fight as he welcomes death, shutting down. Through the fog in his brain, he thinks he hears the villain cackle. The pain seeps away, more of an annoying prick than a constant throb. His body is defeated, he stops resisting, and momentarily it is peaceful. Spots cloud his vision and everything is too heavy, but Izuku is okay. He will die and no one will miss him. Life will move on. His desolate home will be abandoned once more. Mold will regrow on the brandished wood and the water will turn yellow with age. The old vendor will forget his face and the butcher a few blocks from him will forget his name. He writhes for a final time, a final act of desperation. He doesn't like this death. It's too easy, too quick. His heart is quiet and instead of the familiar rush of blood, all he sees and hears is sludge and the voice of a miserable blob of shit consuming him because they want to survive. The sky turns black. Sometimes, Izuku wonders what would have happened had he never shown up. If the people who chased him had given up midway and Izuku walked home. If he never found the underpath or chose a different one instead. Izuku wonders if that would have been better. For everyone. Tashinori. Peace symbol. Peace symbol. Peace symbol. Tashinori Yagi is in pain. It's chronic, sharper than mere phantom pains or reminiscent of old wounds. The villain he'd apprehended was slippery, literally, and flitted through an unseen crack in his bottle, swimming away before Tashinori could hand them over to the police. They're quick, a continuous wave of muck always a few seconds ahead. But Tashinori is all might, a symbol of hope, peace, of justice. He grits his teeth and feels the pulse of one for all stretch across his limbs, creaking his bones. Feels like air, fast and strong, whipping around him like a barrier. It keeps his body looking healthful and large, circles his lungs and bloats his muscles. When he moves, it's quick, a blur of blue and white and yellow and red. The pavement under him cracks as he's sent careening in the villain's direction. They're an ugly thing, putrid shades of green and yellow, like the waste at the bottom of the ocean. They look like something that would end lives. It's an unfair observation, predestining worth from an ugly reflection as opposed to an ugly heart. But today his judgment is right, and so today Tashinori is fair. Liar. They reach a space like a tunnel, where the villain is thrashing around wildly instead of scurrying off. Tashinori doesn't hesitate, lifts a too-big arm, feels the air expand and condense, pressure building, and with a yell of Texas smash, sludge is sent flying everywhere, hitting the tunnel walls. Blind to him before, a person falls limp, thudding against the pavement. Tick, tick, tick. Tashinori makes quick work of apprehending the villain, ensuring there are no cracks in the bottle this time around. He shoves the bottle into his pants pocket, ignoring how it shakes in his grip, and moves to assess the person. A young boy, he presumes, with a round face and freckled cheeks. He's marred and disheveled. Injuries are scattered under his tattered clothes, an unrecognizable uniform of white and gray. Tashinori isn't gentle. He shakes the boy awake with his hands, fearful of a running clock that continues to tick only in his head. His time is up. In moments his body will decay, and he will be nothing but a shadow, forgotten again. Wake up, he urges, moving to slap the boy's cheeks. Wake up. The young boy peels his eyes open, groans and splutters, a mix of blood and sludge and spit staining his uniform. Tashinori pats his back, suppressing a grimace when he hacks out a clot of something crimson. It takes the boy a few seconds to regain his composure and make sense of his surroundings. Thank goodness you're okay. Tashinori feigns bravado. I must apologize, I got wrapped up in... It's fine, the boy answers. His voice is rasped and tattered, like the voice of a chain smoker, made up of broken syllables and rough pronunciations. He tucks his hair behind his ears, and Tashinori's smile falters at the scars drawn across the right of his face. They're stark, scars that belong to a man who's back from war, not of a kid who looks like he's just turned 13. Tick, tick, tick. Well then, all might. Ah yes, what Tashinori, as conceited as it sounds, was expecting. The voice of a starstruck fan. The boy was probably too distressed to take notice of his savior. Of course, Tashinori never learns, never will learn, how he isn't everyone's savior. He will swim in denial, will lie to his reflections and say he can save every life. And then he will break. Except, this voice isn't worn out and dry. It's youthful and full of life, accented with a lisp. The young boy nods to someone behind him. Tashinori whirls around to catch another face. A child, surely no older than 8, with thick black hair and ruby-red eyes. This is starstruck. This is what Tashinori anticipated from the kid he saved. Oh my God! It's you! The kid beams. I'm Mikumo Akitani. He bows, so low his forehead schemes the pavement. It's endearing. I can't believe I ran into you. Tashinori spares a glance behind him and sees the kid he's saved now standing, arms folded across his chest. There's something scrutinizing about him, like he's waiting for Tashinori to slip up, to make a mistake. Tick, tick, tick. Well, it's always great to meet a fan. He bellows a hearty laugh. But I do need to be on my way. It's time to deliver the perpetrator to the authorities. The kid startles and says something Tashinori can't hear over the circulating wind. He feels a little bad, but he cannot wait to listen, so he takes off. Something grips his leg at the last second and is taken with him, the whirring wind drowning out their terrified screams. Toshinori looks down to see Mikumo Akatani and the boy he saved latched onto him. The green-haired boy holding Akatani to his chest protectively, fingers curled in a death grip on Toshinori's pant leg. The boy looks calm, if a little elated, while Akatani looks petrified, the wind pulling the skin of his eyes and mouth. Tick, tick, tick. What the? He splutters indignantly. Let go. There is such a thing as too enthusiastic. Are you a fucking idiot? The green-haired one yells maliciously. If we drop, we fucking die. You want the death of a goddamn kid on your hands? That's aggressive. Please then, close your eyes and your mouth. He feels something hot climb up his throat. Blood flecks from the corner of his lips. Kit. Shit. Izuku. When Izuku is saved by All Might, he's overcome with indifference. The hero is righteous. A good man with a flashy smile and a powerful quirk. He's kind and giving, truly, everyone's hero. At the very least, that is who he represents, and he does it well. Izuku too sees him as a hero. But before that, Izuku recognizes he is human, and Izuku's long since learnt not to keep humans on pedestals. All they do is topple and fall, no more than red splatter on broken concrete staining his shoes. This ideal doesn't change when he wakes up, throat clogged and tasting bile and blood. This doesn't change when All Might offers his reassurances. Instead, it's the little boy who shows up with a starstruck smile that takes Izuku's attention by the horns. There's something hopeful about the way his eyes brighten that reminds Izuku of things he's forgotten. Wishes, dreams, aspirations for a happy future. He's so cheerful. It reminds Izuku of him when he was young and daft and hopelessly hopeful. He shakes with excitement, and All Might, unobservant and clearly preoccupied, doesn't seem to notice the bandages wrapped around his arms and the bangs skillfully covering his eye. His hair is overgrown and unkempt like Izuku's, curling past his shoulders where Izuku's hair falls mid-back. They both wear their hair like a shield though, and the commonality is sad. All Might is also nervous and has been since Izuku woke up. His feet shift, left and right, eager for escape. In his haste, he says something concise and generic, but no less hero-like, to the kid who's bracing himself to ask the hero a question and takes off. The little boy, seeing this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, grabs All Might's pant leg with his bandaged arms in a panic. Izuku doesn't hesitate, struck by impulsivity. He reaches for the kid, reaches for All Might, latches onto his leg with one hand and grabs onto the kid with the other. He does nothing to hinder his annoyance when All Might orders them to let go. Mid-air, at a speed way too fast with the wind circling way too strong. In the back of his mind, he thinks if it were just him, he would've let go, that is, fall and die. He'd be aware of the rushing wind and the adrenaline coursing in his blood, the excitement of a free fall, of flying but not quite. Even now, though his grip is still ironclad, he can't help the way his bones squirm with excitement. The wind is fast, the noise is loud. It's all too dangerous. He really loves it. They land on the roof of a tall, abandoned building. Akatani shakes when he's dropped, and Izuku crouches and keeps him to the side, surveying for any injuries aside from his underlying ones. He seems fine, a little shocked, but fine. Still, as precaution, Izuku doesn't let go of him for fear that his legs might give out. All Might spews something about needing to leave urgently, refusing to turn around. He's about to take off again. Wait! Akatani's little voice is loud. A shout. Wait, please. I cannot. Can someone who's quirkless become a hero? All Might freezes. The age-old question. Izuku's very foreboding. The reason he hurts. What's rooted in his numbness. That leaves him unwanted. What a cute kid with a despairing dream. A kid like him once upon a time. Quirkless. This makes All Might freeze. You're quirkless? Akatani nods, solemn and sad, undoubtedly feeling diseased. He talks about meanness and cruelty and how saving people is just so cool and awesome. Izuku listens intently. He can't help how he sees himself in this young boy with so much to offer. His answer is foreboding the story of a hero who lost despite winning. A story of tragedy and pain, spoken by a gaunt, spineless man. A fucking pity party. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, Izuku doesn't know what the other two are thinking. He doesn't know who Toshinori Yagi is. Doesn't know he is a man with deluded dreams, another perpetrator, another conformity, in a fucked up society. Doesn't see what All Might sees. The face of a beautiful woman with a bright smile and a dead promise on her tongue. Doesn't feel the despair and hate and weakness of a man who holds too much in hands too small. Izuku doesn't know the story of Mikumo Akatani. Doesn't know he is a boy with so much hope and love. Doesn't see the image of a perfect hero dying in a pitiful flame. Doesn't feel the despair and hate and weakness of a boy who holds too much in hands too small. So I can't bring myself to tell you, you can do it even without a quirk, All Might finally says, standing up tall limbs and all. He's still talking, bullshitting about the truth, telling little kids to be realists, to not dream, leaving a young, trusting boy heartbroken. You're pathetic, Izuku tells him just as he's about to leave. All Might stops at the rooftop door and tilts his head as if to say something. Izuku doesn't want to hear it. This man isn't a symbol. This man isn't a hero. This man is pathetic, fueled by nothing but pity and desperation. Fuck off, Izuku says abruptly. No one will find out about your ugly-ass form. Just fucking go. All Might looks like he wants to object, before deciding against it and walking off. Izuku reins in his anger and lets it stretch across his fingers. A sniffle draws his attention. Akatani. Kid. Izuku approaches him, ensuring he keeps a distance. He raises his hands in a conciliatory manner. I think I should tell you something. Akatani looks up. Izuku steps closer and waits to see if he shuffles away. When the kid does nothing, he crouches to his height and gently brushes his hair behind his ear. His eye, equally as red as the other, is bruised and swollen, shades of blue, purple, and yellow. It's fine, kid, Izuku says when Akatani jerks away. He tucks his hair and gestures to his face with a lazy finger. I've seen worse. W what? I'm quirkless too, Izuku admits. Some people can be real assholes. Is that going to happen to me? Maybe. Despite his casual tone, Akatani flinches. Maybe not. But that's not what I wanted to say. What is it then? You can be a hero. The sniffling quiets. The tears stop. Huh. You can be a hero. But All Might can, and excuse my language, get fucked right in his wound. He's wrong for telling you that, regardless of his reasoning. He's right, though. Akatani looks down, ashamed, his voice cracking. It's stupid. Everyone at SC school tells me the same thing. Do you want me to be honest? He nods. You can be a hero. It's as simple as that. Thousands of heroes don't have flashy physical quirks like All Might, and they're doing just fine. Are really? Really? Izuku pauses. But Akatani winces, expecting it. It isn't going to be easy. You're going to have to work harder than all your friends, all your classmates and peers. You might never make it to the top. With every word, Akatani shrinks. Izuku is harsh, he knows it, all awkward and stunted and blunt. Honest when he needs to be. The worst kind of liar. So it's impossible, Akatani concludes. Nothing is impossible, Izuku rebuttals efficiently. I said it would be hard. Really hard. Akatani looks up at him, his eyes glassy and hesitant, fists clenched. To believe or not to believe. It hurts. He hurts. Now, a young boy with many scars and haunted eyes tells him he can. Is the first person to tell him he can. And he sounds so sure that Mikumo wants to believe. So badly he wants to believe. You want to be a hero, right? Izuku thinks the kid might have dislocated his shoulders with how rapidly he nods. Then you can do it and start now. Look up heroes like you, who fight quirkless, who fight using nothing more than strategy and skill. Work hard. And if I fail? Akatani asks, voice small. Then you fail. It's brusque. You won't know until you try. I want to be a hero. Then be a hero, kid. Katsuki. Katsuki isn't too sure what happened. He was walking, two no-name faces trailing behind him like obedient puppies, chatting about something or nothing. Katsuki doesn't pay them mind. Today they talked about their future. Today he exclaimed he was going to Yui. Today he promised he would, to every face at his no-good, fucky school. Today he remembered a face. A different one he hadn't seen in nearly 3 years. The face of a young boy with bright eyes who wanted the same, to be a hero. He wonders, not for the first time, where he went. Where he is. Gone, he and his mum, without a trace, without a note or a goodbye. He'd been saying another silent prayer to a deity he didn't care for when something came up behind him, all gross and dripping with a snarl and puss-colored eyes. It latched onto him with wet claws, talking something about being amorphous as Katsuki set off explosion after explosion. His lungs were on fire, his eyes and head stung, and he couldn't breathe. His wrists ached and he was choking. There was a fire, he could see it, wild and orange and blazing. A crowd formed, people staring at him like he was a scene from their favorite movie. Heroes watched, standing still and unsure as Katsuki died. As he dies. Shit. Fuck. Do something, you bastards. Fucking help. Someone runs. An unknown person with familiar hair. He throws something metal at an eye, and the villain flinches back hard enough that Katsuki can breathe. He gasps for air greedily and sets off another stream of explosions as the villain tries to drown him again. The unknown person is staring at him, freckled cheeks and blank green eyes. And oh, he knows that face. What the fuck? What the fuck? There's a sudden gust of wind. Katsuki falls to his knees. Everything hurts, everything burns, and the unknown. No, not unknown, he knows that person. Those freckles and green eyes and tan skin. Sits on his ass, scowling at the floor. Fuck, Katsuki knows that face. The heroes come up to him. All Might is there, apprehending the villain. They congratulate him and offer him internships at their agencies despite not knowing who he was or what he wanted to be. They reprimand Deku for intervening and escalating the situation. Yes, Deku. It had to be him. It has to be him. I'm not here to listen to you lecture me, Deku drawls. Except it doesn't sound like Deku. Not how Katsuki remembers. Deku was bubbly, quiet and nervous. His voice young and hopeful. This person sounds lifeless, like sandpaper scarred the inside of their throat. Especially not after seeing you all stand by as a kid was almost killed. None of us had suitable quirks. Death Arms starts. Deku cuts him off. I have no quirk. And yet I saw that thing's eyes weren't amorphous, and threw something at it. Kamui Woods has a quirk suitable enough that he could have poked its eye out, blinded it, had it released the kid fast enough for anyone, to grab him and then figured out a way to detain the villain safely. Without the dying hostage. Holy shit, it really is Deku. Deku's words are curt and short, blunt and leaving no room for argument. The pro-heroes are rendered speechless long enough for Deku to get up and walk away. Katsuki, confused and in pain, shoves past everyone to reach him, growling at reporters eager to interview a kid who nearly bit the dust as everyone watched. Deku, he calls out. The person doesn't move, doesn't flinch. Deku, he tries again, more aggressively. Still no reaction. The person turns the corner, out of Katsuki's line of vision. When he rounds the corner, Deku is gone, just an empty walkway. That was Deku. He knows it. It has to be. And Katsuki lost him. Again. He's gone without a trace. It was Deku, right? Toshinori. Peace symbol, peace symbol, peace symbol. When Toshinori manages to flee from the press, the green-haired boy is no longer by the alleyway. He is gone, and Toshinori feels his blood curdle. He's lost something. He isn't sure what. He isn't sure who. All he is sure of is that he didn't get to meet the green-haired boy. And yet, he's lost something. He knows it. Izuku. That was amazing. Akatani praises as they walk back to his home. Izuku insisted he drop him off, lest he gets lost or injures himself or is confronted by mean kids who find joy in hurting those they deem lesser. He hadn't intended to intervene when the sludge villain struck. But then he saw Katsuki, the boy looking so small and lost, and he ran, telling Akatani to wait in the crowd. Thanks, kid. They reach his place in a short period, only a few blocks from the attack. Akatani talks his ear off, telling him about how he's definitely going to be a hero now. That if Izuku can run into a villain and not die, so can he. He's so happy, so proud. Izuku gives himself a moment to pretend he is a kid. 2. For a moment, he is 9 and Hisashi's left, but it's alright because Hisashi was mean, and it's his birthday. For a moment, he is 9, blowing out the candles on the cake his mum made just for him. For a moment, he is 9, telling her he wants to be a hero and beaming when she smiles and tells him he can. She was talking with no merit, talking only to talk and keep Izuku, for that day, happy. She loved him enough. We're here. Akatani looks sad to leave Izuku's side. He eyes him hesitantly as if daring to ask a question. What's up? Are you going to be a hero too? It's soft-spoken and nervous. He's been framed as a hero quite a bit in the last 24 hours. But he is not 9 anymore. He shakes his head. I don't think heroism is for me. The kid slumps dejectedly, but Izuku doesn't have any more to say. It's the truth. Izuku can't be a hero. Not because he's quirkless, but because he's broken. He's vile and weak and dangerous. A monster. That's fine. Akatani sticks his chin up. I'll be a hero for the both of us. Then, Izuku ruffles his head, a mop of coal-colored curls. You keep that promise for me, kid. Izuku. Izuku walks to Yui, swaying at each step, movements loose and lax. He's been around the perimeters before in attempts to cure his boredom. Seeing how far he could make it before a wire was tripped or an alarm started blaring was fun. He's never been caught, but he's never been inside, not like now. The entrance exam for the general education course is composed of 3 tests, divided categorically. Heroics in regards to ethics and stances as opposed to application and fieldwork, general knowledge, and an essay prompt as a supposed way to discern someone's personality. Izuku was of the opinion that words on paper meant shit in the grand scheme of things. People can lie, will lie, saying they're all smiles and strength when they're nothing better than vindictive and awful. If Izuku was the bright young man with an iron will that he'd once hoped he'd grow up to be, he'd only be worried about those tests. But he isn't, never has been. Izuku is a half-dead suicidal idiot with jaded eyes. He'd made a mistake. A dumb, uncalculated, fucking stupid as shit mistake, applying to Yui with Akatani around. Izuku had grown ridiculously fond of the little kid over the passing months. Akatani reminds Izuku of a younger him, the him that needed protecting and nurturing and love. Akatani can be so juvenile, is so gentle and sweet, and he makes Izuku feel welcome. His mothers, 3 tender and lovely women with doting smiles and warm hugs, offer Izuku solace in their little apartment. They're so kind to him, kind to his scars and his tired eyes. They thank him for watching over their kid, whom they love so dearly and strongly. It makes Izuku's stomach dip, not out of jealousy, but nostalgia. For a little boy with the same big, green eyes. Nostalgia for his mother, who would hold him tight. So, he'd become so stupidly indulgent and applied to Yui in Akatani's presence. What he forgot to take into account, however, is that Akatani is a fucking brat. Izuku's application to go through with the heroics exam is proof of that. Still, on the off chance he'd pass the exam, he'd refuse admission. He couldn't go. Izuku is no hero. The hero course students are here too. They hold a different air to them, one of importance, showcasing nerves scaling far greater than those reserved for a mere written test. They're anxious, rightfully so. Izuku read up on Yui's previous entrance exams. It's always different, always a new trick or some pathetic ruse. It's what Yui is known for. An air that obstructed all foresight and foreshadowing. A school made to pave the way for heroism. A career full of nothing but dead ends and secret passageways. Sudden arcs and disguised anomalies. Still, there are patterns, no matter how subtle and underlying. Izuku picked up on them. Something big, flashy. Dangerous but calculated. Straightforward, always direct, and without a doubt, catering favor to those with loud and flashy quirks. Quirks made for combat and demolition. Like the sound of his pop, bang, and the smell of burnt sugar and gas. With that in mind, Izuku had sought out forms for students like him who needed support. He requests to bring an old, rusty switchblade made out of metal scraped from beach junkyards and the fire of burning candlelight and is approved a week before the exam. He slips the blade out of his pocket, holds it in between his fingers, and flicks it open and closed, letting it dance in his hand. The test is in half an hour. He should go into the building, where other students are bustling and hurrying. The edge glints prettily, and with a sardonic sigh, Izuku lets it clip the end of his finger for that slight, achingly beautiful sting of something. He slips it back into his pocket, stalking forward. The chatter of students left and right and all and everywhere is annoying. They're excited, scurrying, blind to others and so focused on themselves. They're the main characters in their own story. Izuku wonders what that feels like. To be the main character, that is. He's but a bystander, a face. He's as lively as a cadaver. He doesn't thrive, not like these people. Briefly, he considers tailing it, telling Akatani his nerves got to him. Sure, Yui's general education course was the best option for someone like him, but he doesn't need Yui. He's been doing well enough on his own for a while, and it's not like he had any qualms against continuing to make a living in less legal ways. You're going to apply to the hero course, right? Just for me. Akatani looks up at him. Izuku regrets telling him he was planning on attending the Yui General Studies course. I told you, bugger, heroism is not. You don't have to go into the course, Akatani cuts him off. Just apply and beat their asses. Just show me you can. Show me that I can. Izuku huffs, and if I don't get in? Then you'll still get into the other course because you're smart, duh. Akatani rolls his eyes like it's the most obvious answer in the world. Cheeky little shit. And I'll just have to be the first quirkless person to make it into the Yui hero course. Besides, Akatani stands up and grins toothily. Either way, I can tell people you go to Yui. Tell them you're so strong you didn't even need the hero course. He puffs out his chest, all pride and admiration for Izuku. My Aniki goes to Yui. And yes, he calls Izuku Aniki. And yes, it makes Izuku's bitter, world-weary heartbeat just a little too fast. Sweet. The kid is fucking sweet. Fucking sweet, stupid, cute, dumb ass of a child I came across. Goddamn it. Fine, you brat. I'll apply. Izuku groans. His impending despair is only further encouraged as Izuku trips on air. His foot catches on nothing and Izuku slips. The concrete doesn't look soft this close. Not like it does on rooftops when he's too far up to see the ridges and cracks and gravel. The concrete looks soft on rooftops. Like a pillow, something he wants to fall headfirst into, to sink. He braces himself, biting back a yelp as he knocks face first into the concrete. In a different world, a prettier one, there's this girl. She's cute, big-eyed with blushing cheeks. In that world, he arrives earlier, and she's there, catches him before he hits the concrete. She's nice, but that world is a prettier one. One where he has a quirk, a promising future, and time to live. It's a sharp pain, throbbing from his nose. He groans, rolling over onto his back. People stare at him funnily, but no one makes a move to help him up. Some of these kids are Japan's future heroes. Just a bunch of anxiety-ridden fuckbrains too in their head to help a kid who crashed into the pavement like a fucking moron. Someone swears and footsteps head towards him. Holy shit, dude. A boy sticks his hand out, the familiar pattern of Lichtenberg scars dancing across his arms and into his sleeve. Izuku stares up at the face, grimacing at the taste of iron in his mouth. The boy is attractive, he notes, with dark blonde hair and a single, thick black highlight. His eyes are wide and electric, a neon yellow almost brighter than the sun. His hand is still stretched out, and after a second's worth of hesitation, Izuku takes it. The boy heaves him up with slender muscles and a wry smile. You're bleeding, my guy. He points a nervous finger at Izuku's nose. Izuku uses the back of his hand and smears away the blood, wiping it down the fabric of his sweatpants without care. The blonde gapes at him, freezing in place. Weird. Thank you, Izuku tells him softly, hoarsely. He doesn't wait for a reply as he begins walking away. He's a spectacle, he's sure. a scruffy-looking kid dressed in two big black clothes. The boy snaps out of his trance and shuffles to catch up to him. That was kind of badass, Blondie says to him, matching his pace as they walk through the gate. Yui really is a phenomenon. Large and tall with high ceilings and impeccable paintwork. Izuku feels out of place. I'm Kaminari. By the way, Denki Kaminari. He throws a two-finger salute. Izuku Midoriya. Izuku responds curtly. So, you applying to the hero course, Midoriya? He's trying to make conversation with Izuku. It's peculiar, strange. Then again, he doesn't know Izuku is a defect. A quirkless runt. I'm taking the exam, but I sure as fuck aren't enrolling. I am too. Kaminari grins, excited. I'm extremely nervous for this part of the test though. I'm not the best at academics, at least nothing in STEM. I'd say I'm decent enough at literature and all that, but even then, you don't get smart with a quirk that quite literally fries your brain cells. It's an off-putting joke, but Izuku can respect off-putting humor. After all, he's such an off-putting boy. You have an electric quirk, emitter, Izuku states. His voice is so feeble that Kaminari leans into him to hear. Is the output what fucks with you? Kaminari stills. He does that a lot. Before barking out a laugh and resuming, it does. Man, how'd you figure that out? He doesn't let Izuku answer. Continuing, it makes me all spacey. Like dud-ed. Is that even a word? Who cares? Anyways, it's powerful as fuck, so like, I think it could get me through the practical fine enough. Intelligence just isn't my strong suit. Yeah. Izuku shrugs. You'll do whatever. Kaminari laughs again. I like you. Izuku doesn't get to question what he meant. What is it that he liked, and is it a lie? He doesn't know Izuku. Doesn't know he's a monster. An unpredictable, ugly monster. As the voice of someone else draws their attention. Please state your name. A lady in a pencil skirt with blush-colored skin smiles at them. And I'll direct you to your venue. They're in different venues. Much to Kaminari's disappointment and Izuku's indifference. At venue 9, Kaminari bids him goodbye and turns left while Izuku turns right. The door is huge, too tall and too wide. The number 4 taped boldly at the top. The classroom is large too, stretching far. The largest room Izuku's ever stepped in, lined with perfectly straight desks. At the front of the room is a teacher, a burly man draped in yellow-orange hair with a dog's face, a pointed snout and protruding canines. Izuku runs his tongue over his teeth, where he'd had fangs filed in for protection. After all, sometimes, when they'd break his legs and pin his arms behind his back, all he had left were his canines. His dull, round teeth didn't hurt enough and would not deter them. He needed them to scream. Hello, Ryo Inui, pro-hero hound dog, greets him. Most of the students were already there, save for a few stragglers like Izuku. What's your name? Izuku Midoriya. Hound dog scans the little clipboard, before nodding to the empty seat to the left. Izuku Midoriya, row 10, aisle 8. Please remove all personal items from your person and place them in one of the empty cubby holes. He nods behind him before turning to the small electronic tablet. We have a list of items that set off our sensors at the door. You will have to pass through the handheld sensor before turning to your seat. Doing as asked, Izuku reluctantly strips himself of his little pocket knife and brick of a phone, patting himself down. His hands shake as he pockets them into his shorts, hyper-aware at the lack of a knife and weapons on his person. They can hurt him now. He's vulnerable. If they attack, when they attack, it'll be merciless. Because he may be a monster, with fangs and claws and a predatory snarl, but he still is quirkless. They'll still rip him apart until he's screaming, pleading, begging for the hurt to stop. Despite his menacing appearance, Hound Dog deliberately makes himself smaller, as if to stand with the students, not above them. When he runs the metal scanner over Izuku, his movements are deliberate and unintimidating. It's manipulative, for better or worse Izuku can't determine. Honesty is respected, not necessary. Show a kid you're worth their time and they'll trust you. Will you care for them? Or will you leave them to break? Very well. Hound Dog smiles, and it should look ugly with too many teeth, muzzle and fur. But it isn't. Please take your seat. Don't touch the paper. The test begins soon. People's eyes follow Izuku as he walks down the aisle, judgmental and intimidated. He keeps his head bowed and stares at his clunky sneakers. They whisper to their desk mates, and Izuku catches passing words. Daunting, messy, disheveled, cool. When Izuku slumps into his seat, they turn their heads, the chorus of whispers growing louder when he ties his bangs out of his eyes. To his left, a lanky boy with lavender hair narrows his eyes at Izuku before looking away. There are scars on the boy's face too, from his ears and over his cheeks and nose in the shape of a triangle, white and sunken into his skin. Okay, Hound Dog's voice echoes in the large room. The test will begin in 1 minute. Remember, cameras are monitoring you. I have the right to kick you out and prevent you from continuing or passing this exam if I catch you violating the rules or cheating. There are a total of 3 sections to this test. Each section should take no more than an hour of your time. You will not be allowed to revisit sections once the hour is over. At the end of the test, you will not leave until I have collected every sheet. Should, at any point in the test, you have a question, there are sensors on the side of your desk. Tap the sensor and type in your question. My tablet permits me to answer you back. All candidates have the right to withdraw and leave at any time, but no, it is an automatic fail. There will be a short, 5-minute break in between each section. Talking amongst your peers is forbidden during that time. An alarm sounds and Hound Dog smiles again. Remember, kids, it's plus ultra. Essay prompt. Morality. Is there such a difference between good and evil? Everyone is evil if they are human, and everyone is human if they are evil. The concept of goodness and integrity is neither relevant nor worth acknowledging, and that's simply because humans aren't innately good. Society is prejudiced and built on bigoted ideologies and dogma. Superiority is believed to be a trait that people are born with. Men aren't equal, life is unfair, and people cheat. Everyone knows this or will come to know it. The problem isn't society, not inherently, but the people. Yet we function as if we don't know this. And really, are we at fault? You grow up with the short end of the stick and you learn where you stand. Those above you, always and forever seen as superior, learn where they stand too. Preferred to you, towering over you, a giant, looming shadow that you'll never escape. They keep their fingers wrapped around your throat, squeezing. They'll sneer at you, suffocate you, spite you, because they truly, wholly believe they are better. This conclusive evidence, labeling society and people as evil. And it's not necessarily that everyone has their hands on you, despite you being lesser and them not, but it's because everyone knows this. They know how you are treated, even if it's not their hands that strike you. They aren't ignorant. They're comfortable, desperate to stay cocooned in their own bubble of contentment. But, for the sake of argument, let's call them ignorant and say they don't know any better. Doesn't that only further prove the point that man is not good and will never be? If society is blind to the violence and hate that surrounds them, how dare we claim righteousness and morality? Of course, there's also the concept of change, that people who are evil can learn to become good. The angel of second chance. It's a common mindset shared by those who see themselves as altruistic and admirable. Heroic. That people can reform, rehabilitate, and bloom like the petals of a wilted flower when a kind man gives it water and sunlight. And maybe people are capable of change. Maybe the girl who mocked you in middle school flourishes into a beautiful young woman who's cordial and earnest and everything she wasn't when she was 13. Does that make her any less evil? If you stripped her down, peeled away the hard work, forgot the unlearning, the determination, the strength, isn't she still evil? A world that thrives off of imbalance, of the ruining of one person for the success of another, is a world dictated by evil. And not once, as history ran and runs its course, have people proven to thrive otherwise. Take centuries ago, for instance. Men were better than women, whites better than blacks, a slave over a helpless housewife, a hierarchy that took root, cultivated and weeded itself into progression. Antagonists to equality, empathy, and prosperity. To this day, those baseless ideologies still run rampant and unforgiving. Though it's better, though people fought for their lives and freedoms, it was costly. They were hit, beaten down, and spat at. They suffered, and continue to suffer, to their very last breath. And so, if I walk the streets, I'm still ridiculed for my tanner skin and my unruly hair. Further, with the mild progression. As the swarm of people ignorant to their prejudices became minorities, those pretentious rulers sitting on their bone-made thrones grasped at straws to find another perfect imbalance. Something to keep the power struggle alive. Something that promised them the clouds and sun and sky. It was then decided that man could only love woman, should the world cleanse itself of further sin. And again, people fought, rioted, let themselves break over and over for another sliver of progression, and let themselves wallow in their ever-growing grief as they drowned. It became a cycle. Prejudice dwindles in the aftermath of war, and yet society never once changes. Because following the acceptance of love came the hierarchy of quirks. And yet again, we bleed in a society where worth is dictated by nothing more than the genetic lottery. Scratching out the right numbers or paying the price for your gambles. Heinous, malevolent, and corrupt, I cannot say in good faith that man is good. Everyone is evil if they are human, and everyone is human if they are evil. Further, Hitoshi. Wow, you really think a villain like you can make it here? The test is over, and Hitoshi is waiting patiently by the door. The heroics exam is not for another 40 minutes, and the venue is a short, 10-minute walk according to Hound Dog. He'd meant to gain his bearings, slow his breathing and relax his muscles. But life isn't fair, not to kids like Hitoshi. He runs into an old classmate with a forgettable face but a memorable voice. This boy was one of the first to ever speak to Hitoshi. Never did Hitoshi answer back. Then they'd run away, and he'd be in trouble because they deemed him villaina, and claimed he had meant to hurt them when they heard his voice. Most of those kids knew nothing more than his fucking name, and yet they were so quick to swear he'd had every intention to hurt them. The bully is ugly too. It makes him all the more difficult to stare at, with pus dripping from rotten ears, smelling like a rotting corpse. Hitoshi knows he's being mean. It's his quirk, it keeps things preserved, and the kid had been in an accident a while back, the hands of a reckless robbery. He'd been injured, and his quirk had activated when he'd nearly had his ears severed off. He can't control it. But if Hitoshi's a villain, he's unsightly. Hitoshi clenches the fabric of his long-sleeved shirt and sidesteps the boy, determined to make it to the heroics exam site. But life isn't fair, not to kids like Hitoshi. Where do you think you're going? Hitoshi clicks his tongue and narrows his eyes in warning. The boy falters as if suddenly remembering what Hitoshi's quirk is. As if he'd ever forget. And then someone grips Hitoshi's wrist and doesn't let go despite Hitoshi's flinching. He's dragged away, around the unsightly boy and down the hall. Hey! Fuck off! Puss ears, the person who'd grabbed Hitoshi mutters. It cuts through the murmuring in the halls, over the distance, halting the boy in his tracks. When they turn the corner, it isn't to the sound of footsteps chasing them. When he looks up, Hitoshi finds that the person who saved him had been the boy who sat next to him during the test. Haggard-looking, with scars and piercings and tired eyes. The boy drops his wrist and squints at Hitoshi piercingly, before tilting his head and turning on his heel. Thanks, Hitoshi forces out before the boy can get too far. The boy shrugs and continues to walk away. Curious. Izuku. Welcome one and all to my live show. Everybody say HEY. Embarrassing. Voice hero, present mic, otherwise Hisashi Yamada, doesn't blush despite the silence. Mumbles something along the lines of, I'll get them one day. Izuku silently disagrees. Slouched against his chair, he keeps his expression neutral as present mic talks about the exam. Another part of him, a quieter part, silently searches the room for a familiar head of ash-blonde hair. He'll be here. Izuku knows it. He has to be a hero. He has to be. The hand of a boy only a few seats from Izuku shoots up. Excuse me, may I ask a question? Izuku can only describe the boy as pathetically square. Rigid and strict, posture too stiff, voice sounding antediluvian. He complains about a portion of the exam present mic had yet to explain. Izuku can't help but frown. Surely it'd be explained had he let the hero finish fucking talking. And you! He turns around. It takes Izuku a second to realize it is him he's staring at. He doesn't know him, so why is he staring? Does he know he's quirkless? Will he call him out? Izuku doesn't care, but damn it, he will lodge a knife into the asshole's arm if people start treating him like the exam's target for not having a quirk. How dare you show up looking so unkempt? If you think Yui is some pleasure jaunt, then leave this place at once. Izuku cocks an eyebrow but says nothing. The attention is directed to him and he drops his shoulders instinctively. Okay. Present Mike draws his vowels. Thank you for the segue. Much appreciated, Examinee 7111. He smiles placatingly before explaining the 0 pointers. He tells them to avoid it and run away. Tells them taking it down is frivolous. Izuku doesn't hear it. That'd be one hell of a robot to take down. Perhaps this exam will be worth some merit after all. The faux city is large, buildings tall and many. It looks disturbingly real, like a big city. Neighborhood found at the heart of Tokyo. Izuku's the last of the students to barricade through. He keeps his head down and stays strolling at a slow, lethargic pace. The students are rampaging, fighting to be at the top of the top. Thousands of candidates just looking to be number one, some way, somehow. Ambitionless, Izuku wanders, marvels at different quirks and picks them apart with the ease of a baker making bread from his minute observations. See someone strong and remember they're weak. Flourish knowing that, in the end, death is inevitable. A mild person with stringy hair shoots past him, dragging themselves using tape from their elbows like one of Izuku's favorite old comic heroes. Numbers are yelled out over the sound of breaking robots. 12, 25, 9, 32. Izuku slips into an alleyway, twirling his knife between his fingers. He hadn't touched a robot yet, only 6 minutes left until the test. Out of the corner of his eye, he spots one of the larger ones, a 3-pointer, running down the streets. He pulls his teeth back in a pretty, vindictive smile and sprints towards it. The robot locks eyes with him, states in a toneless voice, "Target locked," and starts forward too. Picking up his speed, Izuku makes a show of running left and right, pushing so his muscles hurt. The robot moves fast, but Izuku, the quirkless little reject, is faster. He has to be always ahead and never outpaced. Not just first but forward and far. He ducks under a metal arm and kicks upward, landing shakily on the swinging limb. The robot reels, but Izuku forces his fingers in between the metal of 2 parts, yelping at the sting, slipping but still holding on. He careens himself upright and latches himself onto the robot's back, stabbing the little blade right at the center and using his weight to drag it downwards. It sparks, burns and smells as it starts to rot. The robot spasms as the knife tears at the soft metal, squirming wildly, but Izuku doesn't let go. His grip weakens as he nears the ground, and the slip-up is enough to have him thrown off, harshly pulling out his knife and with it the exposed wires. The robot slowly and sloppily shuts down, folding in on itself and slumping into a heap of useless metal onto the street. Izuku stands up and walks over, keeping at his leisure pace. This isn't worth the wear and tear on his muscles. He starts pulling the robot apart, yanking off the limbs and exposing the wires. Participants stare at him as they run around, bewildered, affronted and relieved. He finds that the robot's primary functions reside within the wiring of its eyes, explaining the continuous flailing despite the wires torn in its spine. It had taken far too long for the fried wires to override and incapacitate the robot. So go for the eye then? He gets onto his feet, rolls his heels and paces in place, contemplating going after another one to test his theory. His train of thought is cut short when the ground starts to shake, a full body buzzing that has Izuku almost toppling over. He stares up, right before debris and concrete are flung around and a robot, the height of a skyscraper, breaks through the ground and starts barreling through the arena. The 0-pointer. Students around Izuku are running and screaming, frantic to get away. Izuku himself is still pacing in further consideration. That thing looks dangerous, is worth nothing, and would probably injure him terribly. On the other hand, it also looks fun. Izuku likes the way it feels when his blood starts to sing and his heartbeat deafens him. Likes it when all he can feel is giddiness and fear. He likes it when death is only seconds away from him, only a step or two behind. He's also yet to test his theory. From the corner of his eye, Izuku catches someone buried under the rubble. The pretty blonde from earlier, Denki Kaminari. And in that other universe, it's the cute girl with blushing cheeks. In that one, the prettier one, Izuku slams the robot with a fist made of iron. In that universe, he is a hero. His decision is made. There isn't any hesitancy, there never really was. The mirage of contemplation is merely that, a mirage. A facade of sanity, and, with Kaminari seizing, he'd mentioned it was his drawback, right? And immobilized, now a facade of heroism. Besides, the blonde doesn't seem to be coming to his senses anytime soon. His scars are puckered and bright pink. His pupils so dilated Izuku's confident, he can't tell left from right. Izuku grins, all bite, and shoots forward. The grounds are still vibrating, but Izuku's balance is good, and he easily dodges the pieces of flying rubble, concrete and plaster. The zero-pointer doesn't fixate on him, it stays on a one-way path, stalking forward with no sense of surroundings. He flicks open his knife, catching his reflection in the metal, and with every bit of strength that he has, jumps. The robot doesn't stutter despite the knife now wedged into his leg and the kid swinging forward from its grip. Izuku uses the momentum to hike upwards, climbing up and up until its faux elbow. Every second is a second closer to Kaminari, and so instead of hiking up more, Izuku throws himself onto his feet, upright on the robot's swinging arm. He runs and jumps, stabbing his blade into the robot's neck before he's thrown off. He must be closer to the sensitive wiring because the robot starts trembling as Izuku attempts to steady himself as best as he can on a shaking skyscraper-sized robot's shoulder. The eyes. With bated breath, Izuku kicks off and flips onto the robot's head, yanking the blade out. He bends 90 degrees. A single misstep would send him to the floor, splat on the dirty concrete. Staring at the robot's unfixing eyes, Izuku grips the lipped metal on its head and drops himself, kicking hard into its side and using the dent as a foot grip. He takes his free arm, holding the blade, and stabs the first eye. The glass cuts through the fabric of his clothing as it shatters, and there are the satisfying sounds of spark and sizzle as he tears through the wires, arm halfway in. He does it again, kicking into the lower eyes and stabbing the ones in reach, an iron grip where his fingers still curl under the raised metal on its head. He laughs, a full-bellied thing, knuckles white as the robot spins to swat him off, like a pesky fly. "Fuck you," he sings gleefully, before pulling out the wires of the sixth and last eye. The robot falters, freezes, drops and plows downward, collapsing. Izuku falls, bracing himself. He hits the ground with a thud, impact pillowed by random robot parts and soft metal. His muscles hurt, his legs and arm cut by little glass pieces, fingers singed by the sparks of the exposed wires, breathing heavily. That was fucking amazing. With what little strength he has left, Izuku tumbles over to Kaminari, only meters away from where the robot fell into itself, still stuck under the concrete. Izuku pushes the concrete off of him with whatever strength he has left, and Kaminari slumps forward. His eyes are less vacant. "Fuck," he groans. His leg is twisted horribly. "Fucking shit, what did I do?" Izuku gives Kaminari a hand like Kaminari did that morning when he helped Izuku. A weird premise of déjà vu. Izuku thought of Kaminari as a hero at the time. Izuku is a mimic and fraud in comparison. Kaminari blinks up at him 1, 2, 3, before attempting a smile, though it looks more like a grimace and taking his hand. "Time is up," a voice yells through the speakers. "Grab onto me." Izuku turns to a boy with bright red hair who's walking over to them, looking worse for wear with prominent, purple bruises covering every inch of his forearms. "Both of you," hesitantly, Izuku hands over Kaminari. "That was awesome, by the way." Redhead compliments, his teeth way too sharp, manly as Izuku passes out. "Chio. Circled plus, circled plus, circled plus. Chio frowns at the huddle of teenagers in her infirmary. Day by day, these heroes-to-be grow more and more reckless. Frankly, she should have a conversation with Toshinori, drag him by his ear and force him to hold a conference stressing the importance of self-safety. Not that the buffoon would listen, she thinks haughtily. To be a symbol, he needs to be an example, not only righteous but smart. And for all Toshinori is a hero, he's a blundering fool. Is he going to be okay? One Denki Kaminari asks, pointing to the green-haired student, Izuku Midoriya, knocked out on the bed by Chio. The blonde himself wasn't doing so well either, suffering from a mild concussion, a serious ankle fracture, and, from what Chio can hypothesize, the aftereffects of a seizure. Although she isn't 100% certain, the boy had mentioned having an electricity-based quirk. It could be chalked up to electrocution, not that that is any better. However, it isn't up to her to speculate, and she isn't the boy's doctor. He'll be fine, dear, she promises. It seems he passed out as a result of mild head trauma. Also, my quirk requires energy to heal up his wounds, so it drained him some. He should wake up soon. Later on, she'll gloss over the exam footage. Later on, she'll realize how truly miraculous it was that Midoriya went so unscathed. She'd come across him and thought the mangled fingers and severe cuts were bad, unknowing that she could have been treating multiple broken bones and a shattered skull. Head trauma? Kaminari squeaks. That doesn't sound like he'll be fine. No. Chio waves her cane dismissively. It's only mild. If it makes you feel better, you can wait for your friend to wake up. Kaminari visibly slumps at the offer. If that's okay. I just want to make sure he's fine, after saving me and everything. Chio smiles. That kind, old person smile that she's been told warms children's hearts. What a sweet young boy you are, Denki. Denki waits patiently for Midoriya to wake up, each passing minute fueling his anxiety. The kind nurse, recovery girl, he remembers from the brochure, had promised he was fine. Denki's inclined to believe her. She is the expert, of course. Yet, with the way Kirishima, a new friend, had described what happened when Denki was out of it, Midoriya had quite literally fallen from the height of a building after using nothing but a switchblade and sheer fucking will to take down the monstrosity that was the zero-pointer. Denki remembers the hulking thing vaguely, convinced Yui was out for blood. In the same hazy sort of recognition, he also remembers seeing Midoriya, bloodied, cut up and exhausted as he helped Denki out of the rubble. The guy was goddamn heroic. Sure, quirks made people inhuman, but shit, people are people. Denki knows better than most that a powerful quirk doesn't mean infallibility. Recovery girl had mentioned head trauma, too. Denki is familiar with head trauma. Wore it like a glove fit snugly around his fingers. He knows how bad it can get, minor or otherwise. The sound of groaning startles him, and he whips his head to where Midoriya stutters in the clinic bed. He's rather small too, light but dense. Far from bulky, full of lean muscle condensed into a short, nimble body. The body of a sickly runner. Ugh, he gripes, flashing canine-like teeth. Is that a part of his quirk? I would have guessed something with agility. What the fuck? Language, recovery girl scolds, gently whacking her cane against the bed. Izuku flinches violently, throwing himself off the bed, hitting the floor and backing up in a frenzy. Denki startles at the overreaction. Recovery girl's lips are twisted in a heavy-set frown. Put off too. Denki gently walks over, hands in front of him. Noting the distrusting gaze, Izuku shoots at him. Hey, dude, you're just at the clinic in Yui. Yeah? Denki keeps his tone steady, his speech slow. Remember me? The kid you saved from the zero-pointer. Slowly, Midoriya's eyes come to focus, gaze softening. No, not softening, sharpening. Pupils shrinking, recognition in the reflection of his eyes. Sorry, he whispers, standing up. He trips but regains his footing before Denki can move to steady him. Recovery girl clears her throat. I'm sorry for startling you, she says once she's gained their attention. You must feel a little disoriented at the moment. Midoriya hums. How long have I been here? Nearly an hour. She motions to Denki. This young man wanted to make sure you were all right before leaving himself. Midoriya's stare turns to him, though he doesn't meet his eyes, eyebrows furrowed. You waited. Denki nods. Of course I did. Man, it's not every day someone saves you from becoming sidewalk paint splatter. Wanted to make sure you were all right. Least I could do, actually. Midoriya's confusion doesn't lessen, but his expression settles into something more neutral. Thank you. He turns to Recovery Girl. May I leave now? Recovery Girl nods, shuffling over to her drawers and pulling out a small chocolate bar, handing it to Midoriya, who takes it carefully. Eat up. You're rather thin and probably exhausted from my quirk. How far do you live from here? Not far. Well then, please rest the second you are home. Luckily, your injuries were superficial enough to heal despite the mild concussion. It should be nothing serious, but if you start throwing up, convulsing, or otherwise experience anything abnormal within the week, consult your doctor immediately. Midoriya nods. Why don't you leave with him? Recovery Girl offers Denki. And take a bar yourself. Denki grins politely and bows, Izuku following suit as they both exit the facility. Immediately, Denki delves into his chocolate bar. Midoriya eyes him momentarily, looking unsure, before shrugging and peeling his open, breaking off a small piece. I still can't thank you enough. Denki tells him just before they part ways at the entrance. I really thought I was a goner. Midoriya shrugs. It was nothing. Denki hollers, no dude. It was badass. He pauses, digging for his phone and shoving it in front of Midoriya. Why don't you write in your number and I'll text you? This way we'll still keep in touch, even if we both don't wind up here. Midoriya stares at the phone for a while, long enough that Denki lets out an awkward laugh. I mean, you don't have to if you don't. Why are you asking? Midoriya interrupts him, not offended or disgusted. Much to Denki's relief, more bewildered. Denki stares at him a little funnily, before realizing he's being serious. There's something off about it. Something off about him not recognizing a hand-extending friendship as opposed to what? Off about the still weary eyes and scars. There's something off about it all. I want to be your friend, obviously, Denki exclaims, shaking off the thought. Friend. Denki beams brightly. Friend. Izuku. How was the test, fuckface? Izuku scowls at his roommate, unimpressed. The faint stench of smoke that he's grown accustomed to wafts over, followed by the sweet aroma of hibiscus tea. In nothing but a pair of sweatpants, Dabi leans into his palm, elbows propped against the wooden countertop, tattooed arm flexing. The chipped, ceramic cup he holds in his other hand is full to the brim and steaming. As always, he wears a stupid smirk on his face. Aw, come on, he quips playfully. Don't tell me it went that bad, princess. I thought you were just going for the written test anyhow. Obviously, Izuku replies curtly, towing off his sneakers and slinging off his bag. I could give less of a shit about passing the heroics exam. Then what's got your panties in a twist, huh? Izuku cranes his neck. That heroes are all just pretty bullshit, he answers vaguely. Still, it would be damn cool to have a healing quirk. Dabi sips his tea audibly, raising a single, dark eyebrow. A too dark eyebrow with black stains lining the skin messily. There are dye stains in their dingy bathroom too, staining the rusted tiles and one of their towels. Dabi doesn't clean up too well after himself. Izuku doesn't question it. Dabi doesn't question him, so Izuku grants him the same. Still, it would be nice if he asked for Izuku's help dyeing his eyebrows at the very least. He does a horrible job at it. The test wasn't too bad. Izuku relents, walking over to the dingy, old coffee maker and brewing himself something strong. It was fairly easy, all things considered. I definitely wasn't going to win against quirked kids, but the robots were pretty standard, you know? Kinda just swung my blade around and fucked with the wiring. He goes through the motions of making his drink, falling silent before settling comfortably on his tattered sofa couch, just big enough for two people. Sometimes his throat catches when he talks too much, his voice growing softer, tighter. Dabi knows this, understanding that Izuku talks in short and quick sentences. There's a fear of being hurt for talking, being hurt for being heard. It's better now. Dabi remembers Izuku's one-word answers, the fumbling of his fingers, and stiff movements. It's much better now. Wordlessly, Dabi takes the seat next to him. Izuku slumps into his side, bones going slack as Dabi gently runs his fingers through his untamable, long locks. They don't have cable. The TV is muted, flashing blurring gray static. I dismembered one of the robots. Izuku continues, voice still gentle. The only one I took down worth any points. You dismembered it? Dabi repeats dumbly. I know you didn't want to get in, sweetheart, but sitting around playing with broken parts doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Shut up, he mutters weakly. Anyways, I dismembered it. Wanted to find out how it was made, and if there was an easier way to take it apart. He slurps his coffee. Before the exam, they introduced 4 different robots, and one was called a zero-pointer. So futile. To everyone else, Izuku agrees, shrugging. To me, it seemed more like a challenge. Dabi huffs, of course it fucking did. So, I found out that the essential wiring is in the eye, which I found a little unnecessary considering the metal was soft enough to dent and cut through. But anyways, he lifts his fist and mimics a punch. It cut like a bitch, but I could break the glass. When the zero-pointer came, it was the height of a fucking skyscraper. So you ran to it instead of away, Dabi states, not questions, fairly accustomed to Izuku's antics. Climbed it like a goddamn koala, played Ratatouille on its head for a bit before punching its eyes and pulling out the wires. Collapsed instantly. Shit, did you say you were on its head? Yeah. Luckily its parts broke my fall, soft metal and all. Jesus fucking Christ. Dabi shakes his head. So what? Did they pretty up your injuries? Because I get that you're a damn good fighter, but I think that shit would even leave God with a few good scrapes. And a fucking concussion. Izuku's scowl deepens. Yeah. I fucking passed out. Dabi straightens. You what? Head trauma or something? Dabi pinches the bridge of his nose. You're a fucking moron. You know that? Izuku shrugs. Silence accompanies the comforting atmosphere. Dabi and Izuku drinking their choice of caffeine. Except for energy drinks, they both love energy drinks, unhealthily so. Dabi gently ruffles Izuku's hair. Then, Izuku says, because he simply can't fathom that it happened, I gave one of the examinees my number. The fingers in his hair stop, followed by the sound of someone half-choking, half-spluttering. Izuku whirls around to face Dabi, who has tea dripping down his lips, eyes wide and body shuddering. Izuku takes away his cup, placing their drinks on the small chipped table, before gently patting his back, waiting as he coughs violently before going lax against the couch. Warn a man, would ya? Dabi wipes his mouth with the back of his sleeve. Izuku rolls his eyes. Dramatic ass. Shaking his head vehemently, Dabi replies, my reaction was so warranted. You think it's every day you give people your fucking number. You didn't react like this when I mentioned Akatani. Because Akatani is like fucking 5, not a kid your age. Izuku frowns. It's not like that. No? Dabi drawls, you sure about that? Izuku tucks his face into Dabi's side. He said he wanted to be my friend. I still don't know if he was making fun of me or not. He seemed serious. Even helped me when I cracked my nose against the concrete. Dabi wraps a single arm around Izuku and brings him closer. You need to stop getting hurt. They knew that was never going to happen. Izuku likes to hurt like Dabi likes to burn. When Dabi comes home smelling thick of smoke and ash and rage, Izuku has new scars on his wrists and thighs, angry and red and sometimes bleeding. And 2, what makes you think he was making fun of you? I don't think he knows I'm a quirkless, Izuku murmurs. No, you're not an alien. You wouldn't call Akatani a quirkless, would you? Of course not, Izuku scoffs. It applies to you too, goddamn idiot. Dabi places his chin over Izuku's curls. And so what if this kid doesn't know? You told me a quirk doesn't mean shit. Most people don't think that way. Most people can suck Endeavor's balls. Dabi counters vehemently, gently patting Izuku's back before pulling away. And if that kid fucks off after finding out you were quirkless, he isn't worth shit. Izuku stares down, unbelieving but grateful. Dabi sighs, how about we watch a movie or something? Tonight? We can order takeout later for dinner. Izuku hums, hugging his knees to his chest and staring at the static. Sure. 1 year ago. White hourglass. Izuku's been told to keep off the streets at night. It's dangerous for little kids like him, and Izuku was a little kid, standing small at just over 5 feet 1 inch, skinny-limbed and dangerously ashen. But Izuku has these scars, plentiful and stark. He wears shorts because they're easier to steal than pants, easier to wash too, and sometimes he'll tie his jacket around his waist and people see his arms too. It's all scars, lines, and stories. Strangers will see Izuku, skinny little Izuku, and they'll understand. It doesn't matter if they look away, if they help or mock him, because in the end they understand, and that's all that matters. So, with the moon hanging high and the streets vivacious and loud, Izuku wanders. Aimless, he kicks at the rubble with his dirty soles. A lit cigarette fit between his fingers. It's a little past 2 in the morning, summer break. The first semester of his last year at Jinjitsu had come to a close, leaving Izuku with shank wounds and scabs as proof of his departure. Call it a mark to remember them by. Indubitably, Izuku returned the favor. Later on, picking the blood dried under his yellowing fingernails, and reminiscing on the sound of their petrified screams. They're lucky he hadn't whipped out his fucking knife, honestly. They weren't loud enough. Wonder how I'll be sent off when I graduate from there. He trails a finger over the textured skin on his face. If 13-year-olds were capable of this shit, he doesn't want to think about what 15-year-olds could do. Not that he'd go down without a fight. He takes a slow drag of the cigarette, the smoke billowing around him, curling with the humid air. He doesn't smoke often, only when the days feel a little too long and the nights a little too hot. When the prospect of naivety and childish glee becomes too alluring, calling to him as sirens call to pirates at sea. Those days, he'll take the cancer stick to his lips and chug the acrid taste of cheap beer and over-the-counter soju. He'll remind himself that he isn't a kid, staring at the lines he's drawn on his arms and pink burns on his skin. He'll punch brick walls until his knuckles are mangled. Bloody. Because he isn't a fucking kid. The echo of someone gagging pulls him out of his thoughts. It's far from uncommon to hear, surrounded by drunkards and drug addicts. Izuku's keen on ignoring the noise, not one to take pity on pathetic has-beens and self-proclaimed bachelors who've lost their path. When the sounds are followed by the clattering of metal and the repeated thudding of someone being slammed against a dumpster, his gut churns, warning signals of red, blue and white flashing in his head as the person continuously spasms against the metal. Short, repetitive thunks, one after the other in succession. With unassuming haste, Izuku scampers down the alleyway, rounding the corner to one of the most disturbing sights he's ever seen. A man, fairly young or horribly old, Izuku can't tell, is convulsing against the dumpster, eyes rolled to the back of his head. He's wearing pants, loose-fitted, ripped and singed, but is otherwise naked. Dirted, rejected skin grafts are covering the better part of him. At closer inspection, it seems that bloodied staples are holding the skin together, a few coming undone as the man writhes in place. Slowly, pitifully, he comes to, bent halfway over the dumpster in a failed attempt to right himself. Despite the sounds of bars and music and racing cars, Izuku can hear his breathing, a heavy, erratic panting. Izuku notes that he's standing in his own sick. Illuminated by the orange streetlight, there's a large, dark stain at the crotch of his pants and running down his leg, too. Before he can call out to him, as there is obviously something wrong, the guy's body goes rigid. He slumps over again, the sound of him retching bouncing off the alley walls, wet and loud and gross. Crushing the butt of his cigarette under his shoe, Izuku slowly walks over, keeping his footsteps loud and his presence known to keep from startling the person. He smells the pungent stench of rotting flesh, vomit, urine, and old smoke. For the first time, he's grateful that he's dealt with worse, otherwise, he's sure he'd be throwing up too. The person whips around when he hears Izuku with frowning eyebrows and a broody expression. It'd be intimidating, if not for his bleeding wounds, flushed skin and dilated eyes. The way he sways as he goes in and out of focus. He registers Izuku as a threat, shifting his stance defensively, but he's still clutching the dumpster to keep upright. His gaze drops unwillingly as he heaves, throwing up what looks to be blood and water onto his bare feet. The scars crawl to his ankle too, dirt and blood caked under the staples. I'm not bothering with the "are you okay" shit because you're clearly fucking not, Izuku tells the man when he stopped heaving. Tone clipped, I'm gonna take you to a clinic. Foo. F fuck oh. Oh. Oh off. The guy slurs. Am not going to. Own. And no hose. Espita. Izuku narrows his eyes. It's either that or you die, fuckus. NN. NLL. LLD die. Sighing, Izuku walks over, tugging firmly at the guy's arms. Like a rag doll, the guy slumps into his side. He struggles uselessly, not being able to do more than give Izuku a dirty look as Izuku moves the guy around to properly hold him up. He isn't too heavy, probably malnourished. He ignores the sticky feeling of wetness and old staples against his skin. The man is hot to the touch, just shy of scorching. Izuku has to count to 3 under his breath to keep from shoving him off. He hates the heat. Heat hurts. Be it fire breath or explosions. The heat has always been a foreshadowing of immense pain. Despite the vocal protests, the guy doesn't push off, can't. Bone slack. Where are you takin? ID? Titol you no hospitas. No hospitals, staples, we're going to my place. Don't worry about it. Kien, he garbles. Tone lilting with deliria and confusion. No F. F at the father. T2. Izuku bristles. Shitty fathers must be shared experience of some sort. For every fuck up there's a fuck up parent, but continues walking. His little home is only a 5-minute walk. But Staples isn't light, coherent, or stable. He isn't paid enough for this shit. He isn't paid at all. Fuck me. Tuya. Toxic shock syndrome. Tuya hears through the cotton in his ears. It's a feminine voice, velvety. A result of an untreated infection from the burns under his skin grafts. Will he be all right? Another voice, unused and throaty, asks. He was seizing when I got to him and collapsed when I made it to the apartment. Seizing? I'm not sure. We will have to redo the skin grafts, at least on the larger burns. To leave them untreated would undoubtedly result similarly. I managed to drain the pus from the infection with little complication. I would like to keep visiting him for the remaining week to monitor him. Groaning, Tuya pries his lids open, squinting at the shabby, chipped ceiling. When he shifts to get a better look at his surroundings, his muscles protest, and he grimaces at the pain. Good morning to you, the feminine voice from earlier greets, tone bordering on amused. It seems the anesthetic has worn off. Perfect timing too, I was getting worried. Tuya tilts his head to the side. A fairly young woman, he'd presume, with short, choppy mauve hair and dull gray eyes. Where is the other voice? He is sure there was another voice. He rasps, lips dry and throat achy. Hold on a second. The lady slips her phone out of her pocket and types furiously. Another phone buzzes and Tuya whirls around to see the other occupant. The person he'd seen before he passed out, he thinks. Well, the same green head at least. Everything is painfully muddled. Are they the other voice? He can't remember what they sounded like. They look young, too young to sound like a fucking chain smoker. The person glances at their phone, run down and shattered in comparison to the woman's, and nods. Good. She smiles, before turning to face Tuya again. I'm Kumiko and I'll be your doctor. Doctor. Tuya startles and tries to sit up, only to be held down by a firm hand over his chest. His bandaged chest. There are bandages everywhere, actually. His burns aren't aching terribly, not the way he's so used to. Don't move, the woman, Kumiko, orders, aside from the obvious pain in your muscles. You'll start shifting the foredrip. It is then that Tuya notices the pipe lodged into the vein of his forearm, attached to a clear bag of liquid by his side. He opens his mouth to ask, where the fuck am I? Only for a broken wheeze to come out instead. A small glass of water is thrust into his face. He blinks at it and shakes his head, paranoid despite the burn in his throat. He's used to it. He can deal with it. Drink it. Kumiko's smiles grow more unnerving. I promise it isn't poisoned. Tuya glances at the person who's holding the glass of water. The dirty face and matted hair, covered in scars like him. A boy probably, though he wasn't sure. He's so a boy. The one who helped you here, Kumiko tells him, and it's not a hospital. Mentioned how you refused to check yourself in one despite needing it desperately. Tuya's skepticism falters only slightly. Drink it and we'll answer your questions. Kumiko finally relents, sounding impatient. Begrudgingly, Tuya attempts to grab the glass himself, fingers shaking, the 4 in his veins shifting. The boy helps him, much to Tuya's pride. The ache in his throat dies out the second the water touches his tongue. A continuous soothe as he desperately chugs down the oddly large glass, not caring for the way water dribbles past his lips in his haste. Now, what is it you'd like to ask? Where the fuck am I? Tuya's voice is heavy with fatigue but sharp with suspicion. My place, the boy replies. He was the other voice. Why am I here? You were suffering from untreated toxic shock syndrome. Kumiko's thin lips pull into a frown. Your body rejected the poorly made skin grafts you had crudely stapled over your half-healed burns, which resulted in a serious infection. She gestures to the 4 drip. This is currently flooding your system with an antibiotic that is fighting the infection. I had cleaned out the pus and excrements from the infection already, however, I would like to keep you under my watch until I am sure it isn't to return. As well, I would... Hold up, Tuya cuts her off. Keep me under watch? Do I look like a kid to you? Kumiko nods. You do, actually. You look like a kid on the brink of fucking death. Tuya scowls, but Kumiko doesn't let him get another word in. You see this kid? She nods to the green-haired boy. He dragged your half-conscious ass down to his tiny as fuck abandoned house to keep you from dying in the streets. Instead of taking you to a fucking hospital, he brought me over to deal with your miserable ass because you asked him not to. Instead of being grateful, you're pissed. I didn't ask him to do that, Tuya rebuttals. You want to die, asswipe? Kumiko badgers, folding her arms. I'm trying to fucking treat you. So shut up and listen. Reluctantly, Tuya keeps quiet. Like I said earlier, your horrendous attempt at giving yourself a skin graft only worsened the state of your burns. Luckily, the infection only spread to your 1st and 2nd degree burns by the time we caught it. Your 3rd degree burns were already halfway healed before you stapled on the skin grafts and, miraculously, I was able to fight off the infection before more extreme measures had to be taken. Extreme measures like amputation, Kumiko says easily. Tuya winces. As I said earlier, resulting from the infection, you got what doctors call toxic shock syndrome, something that is fatal if left untreated. The 4 drip should treat you just fine for now. I will be putting you on antibiotics for another 6 to 8 weeks as well. However, another surgery is going to have to be performed. Hold up. Shut it. Kumiko raises a hand, cutting Tuya off. All that's going to happen is the application of new skin grafts to your wounds. Luckily, my quirk allows me to make multiples of one thing, meaning we won't have to shave off all your healthy skin to make these grafts. Surgical staples will be used to keep the skin in place as it heals. I will see you again after the surgery to remove said staples. Kumiko claps. I will go over the aftercare for recovery after the surgery. Now, do you have any questions? How do you expect me to pay for all of this? Tuya isn't stupid. It's never a give and no take. It's take and give. Take and maybe give. A favor for a favor. An eye for an eye. Always. I will deal with it. The green-haired boy tells him, don't worry about that. And why would you do that? It's fun. 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 Okay. Tuya shrugs off his unease. What about stay? Because I can't go to any fucking hospitals and, if you didn't know, I'm kind of fucking homeless. With me, Greenie says, you watch over the place while I pay off the medicine. Kumiko's eyes light up. See, it's all dealt with. I never agreed to this shit. Do you want to die then? Greenie gives Tuya a lazy glance. Didn't strike me as the type. Unnerving little shit. Something about him is wrong. The type? Suicidal. The kid lifts his hand. Mimics a gunshot to his head. His knuckles are bruised. Grisly, sporting broken fingernails and scars stretched over the skin. The hands of a boxer, not a goddamn fucking child. Should try roulette then. It's fun. Scout's honor. You're not a scout. Kumiko whacks him. And don't say that shit. Greenie shrugs, eyes still trained on Tuya, who's silent. How does one reply to that? There's something so fucking wrong. Damning seconds pass, feeling like hours and minutes and years. Time seems inconsequential when looking at the kid, into those eyes, glassy and green, bright as toxic waste. The kid smiles. No, he doesn't smile. He shows his teeth, large and yellowing. So you want to live, then? He drops his hand. No shit, Tuya doesn't want to die. If he burns down in an inferno of flames, he'll be damned if it's by himself. When he dies, it's by one man's side, and his side only. Then, every shitty fucking turn and forked road and wrong path he took would be worth it. He's scared too. Scared of death. Of forgetting to live. But that's a secret he's yet to admit to himself. Everything is settled then? Kumiko doesn't wait for an answer, nodding to herself approvingly. I will be back in a few hours with more medical supplies. We'll perform the skin graft surgery in approximately a week when I'm less worried about the infection settling in or worsening. Until then, you aren't to move from this bed or so God help me I'll kill you myself. Seemingly satisfied with her threat, Kumiko lets herself out, briefcase in hand. I'll make you something to eat, Greenie says, heading over to the kitchen. What the fuck? It's Izuku? Corkless, Greenie states after feeding a begrudging Tuya a small bite of his packaged noodles. Tuya raises an eyebrow. My name. Greenie looks to the ceiling, taps his finger against the fork, once, twice, 3 times, and turns to face Tuya again. And my cork status. Corkless? Huh? He isn't expecting Tuya to reply, only shoveling another forkful of noodles into his mouth. Still, as Tuya swallows another bite, he says, Dabi, an easy alias, a distinguishable one too. The kiss of blue flames that eats through everything, eats through his skin and bone. Greenie Izuku doesn't react, just lifts the bowl a little higher to keep the slurp from dripping onto Tuya's chest. Dabi, Izuku repeats softly. Cremation, then. There's a strain to his words, a fear, like he's holding back, biting his tongue. Tuya stiffens. He's smart. Had figured out his quirk from nothing more than the burns on his skin and a fake name. Cremation. They sit in silence for a bit, Tuya only making it through half his bowl before his stomach squirms in protest. Izuku understands, backs off without complaint and wraps the dish, stocking it into his frighteningly bare fridge. Tuya stares at him. There's an itch, a need to know, because he's still confused. Still, doesn't understand. I'm gonna... Why are you helping me? Tuya cuts him off, curiosity winning. You don't know me, you don't know anything about me, and yet you're helping me. I don't fucking get it. He shouldn't be complaining or whining like a toddler. Dabi doesn't want to die, so he shouldn't be complaining. But he is. Because, above all, the relief and gratitude and anger is confusion. Life is brutal, especially to him. So why is he being given a helper? Why does this kid, tired and ragged and scarred, want to help? Do you want to die, Dabi? He asks for the second time that hour. Tuya stiffens, dread creeping onto him, crawling up his ankles, over his thighs, the question fogging the room with trepidation. Izuku walks into his line of vision, and there's something almost disturbing about his expression. Bored, uncaring, apathetic, like death isn't an end, isn't the end, but another happening. There, 2 steps away, reaching for him, and he simply doesn't care. Tuya thinks that sometimes he'll even wait, let death brush its bony fingers across his collarbones, down his arms. Well, Izuku looks at him expectantly. Tuya clicks his tongue. I don't. Izuku gives his answer, then, but it isn't the answer Tuya wants. There's something left to interpretation, to thought. There's more to be said, to be heard. I don't like to see people who want to live, die. What about people who want to die? Tuya's desperate to ask, people who look like you? Except he doesn't want to know. He fears, staring at the way Izuku tilts his head, eyes dull, that he already does. And later, when Izuku returns from a fresh shower, dressed in loose shorts and a ratty, oversized cropped shirt, Tuya will know. Staring at his skin, At the lines on his thighs and arms and hips, the burns on his ribs and the bleeding cuts, he'll know. Izuku would kill them. If a person wanted to die, he'd grant them that mercy. And isn't that bone-chilling? Izuku. Izuku stares at Dabi where he's seated on the worn, small sofa, feet propped onto the little wooden coffee table. His staples had been removed, and his skin was still red and healing, but he looked better. It'll scar forever, purple and red, textured rough skin. He'd finally been able to take a proper shower, the first one he'd had in years. His towels were covered in black stains, gray water flushing down the drain. Dabi had left for the store on his own that morning, insisting it was okay despite Izuku offering to go himself. It was odd, he'd always been reluctant to be out during the daytime. His hair looked darker, richer. No longer soot-covered or colored, but a genuine, deep black. Whenever he rested his head on Izuku's lap, it no longer left a mark of gray. When Izuku patronizingly ruffled his hair, his hand came clean. "What are you going to do once Kumiko-san gives the okay?" he asks. The question had been on his tongue since the skin graft surgery. Dabi is homeless, lost, and dying despite being so aching for life. "What?" Dabi turns to him, feigning confusion. But Izuku's observant, and Dabi's been living with him for a month. His tongue sticks out of his cheek, index finger hooked under the fabric of his shirt. The telltale signs of his anxiety. Izuku doesn't give him the bullshit of falling for the act. "You heard me." Dabi straightens, forgoing the "what are you talking about" charade, frowning in resignation. "I don't know." He doesn't know. Of course he doesn't know. Dabi has surrendered himself to death, to its grip, its promise, despite still aching for life. "Stay with me, then," Izuku offers, not missing a beat. Dabi's head snaps up, startlingly blue eyes impossibly wide. "What?" "Stay with me." Izuku steps forward. "If you have nowhere to go, stay with me." Dabi looks speechless, gaping like a fish as he takes in what Izuku says. Finally, in a quiet voice, he asks, "Why? Why not?" He's a nuisance, a jerk, an asshole. He's mean with a short temper, lights things on fire and rages with a familiarly frightening heat. He's stubborn, doesn't listen, and can hurt. But he's a dying man who's aching for life. Izuku doesn't like feeling alone. No matter how accustomed he is to isolation, he will never like feeling alone. It's always too loud or too quiet when he has no one. He hates it. He hates it as much as he doesn't. Dabi is like him, wallowing in pity, a social outcast, a face to be forgotten, to be ridiculed, be scrutinized. He doesn't care that Izuku's feet are a little too big and he has no otherworldly superpower that puts him above the rest. He doesn't care because they're both rejects, left for dead years ago. And, sure, Dabi calls him fuckface and asshat and princess all sardonic and sarcastic, but he doesn't beat him. He doesn't burn him, even when his fingers glow blue and he's angry. He's far from perfect, but he says sorry and he tries. He tries and Izuku likes that. "I'd like you to," Izuku settles on. Dabi may refuse, but that will be fine too. Because Izuku's never had anyone. Knows aloneness like he knows the scars on his knuckles. So he may say no, but that's fine. Izuku will simply grow used to himself again. Rely more closely on the comfortable reality of death. The sureness of his blades, scars, and unlucky smile. Carefully, Dabi grins, closed-lipped and sincere. His eyes water, liquid-tinged red. "I'll stay." White hourglass. Izuku. "It came," Dabi tells Izuku, waving around a disc. Izuku looks up from the papers strewn across his table. Little blueprints he'd been working on to build a collapsible rod with spear ends. Rumor has it that new people, dangerous people, had been showing up across dingy and dirty neighborhoods. Besides, he liked to tinker, it gave him a semblance of mind, something to do with his hands. What came? The letter from Yui. Nizu. Nizu stares at the file Shota handed to them. Beady eyes squinted but otherwise expressionless save for the tame, ever-pleasant smile on their face. "What is it you want me to do with this file? Do you remember him from the entrance exam? The one who took down the 0-pointer in Venue 9? Nizu's smile widens. I do. Quite the feat, honestly, and didn't seem to use a quirk either, not one I could pick up on. When you give Vlad, Namuri, Hizashi, and me the examinees files, do you review them beforehand? Nizu shakes their head. I give free rein, trusting your intuitions. I'm afraid my experience with humans would hinder me from making objective decisions. It's only so deliciously, ironically human. All they remember are needles, blades, and scalpels cutting their skin open, fur matted crimson. The manic gleam in their captors' eyes as they tore them apart over and over and over again. God, if they could, Nizu would rip them apart limb from limb, as they did him over and over and over again. Not a shred of mercy would be granted. The title of Principal of Yui is already too tempting. He could do so much. I would like you to take a look at his essay. Nizu tilts their head to meet Shota's stare. Essay? Shota nods. Of all the essays I've read for the students applying for the hero course over the years, this is one of the most, for lack of a better word, disconcerting ones. Disconcerting? Intrigued, Nizu flips open the first page, breezing through the words with ease. Shota waits patiently, hunched over, pupils shifting, eyes oddly apprehensive. It takes Nizu no less than 3 minutes to read through the entire thing. A hefty 1,500 words despite the required being a minimum of 750. When they look back to Shota, it's with keenness and newfound fascination. They pause over a few sentences. I see where you're coming from. Evil isn't bred. It isn't cultivated. It is not even the soil where we are planted. Evil is the sunlight and water. It is the seed itself, the tiny, unchangeable parts that are always there. How can one say there is good if goodness only exists to juxtapose evil? There is no solution. There is only annihilation, revolution, or ignorance. Damned, we've chosen all three. However, I do not see why you came to me. Sure, this is a rather untimely perspective, but doesn't that make it all the more interesting? Every year we're given the same spiel. Good wins against evil. Villainy is cultivated. Everyone is good until they are not. Nizu points to the most repeated phrase in the essay, the one that they find especially curious. If you are human, you are evil, and if you are evil, you are human. Ordinarily, he would not have passed, Shota says. He'd only taken down 1 3-pointer. With the rescue points. However, he's ranked 6, just behind Tensei's younger brother, and you're wondering if you should give him a place. These children are striving to be Japan's top heroes. To cultivate a mentality like his is to wield a double-edged sword. Nizu takes another glance at the essay, at the name written in quick, messy scrawl at the top corner. Izukumidoriya. Nizu concludes, he'd done exceptionally well in the written test, so general education is another option. If it eases your worries, we can watch over him before deeming him worthy or unworthy of pursuing heroism. Not that we should have the right. Shota bows. Thank you. Very well. However, Shota pauses just as he's about to leave. Listening. Yui prides itself on raising the best. I hope you didn't forget who you were before you came here too. Shota. He hesitates, nods and walks off. Well then, Nizu murmurs, Izuku Midoriya, Yui entry exam, heroics. Applicant number 9027. First name, Izuku. Last name, Midoriya. Sex, male. Gender and pronouns. Apathetic he/him. Birthday, 15/06/20XX. Address line, XXXXXX Street XX. XXX. Zip, XXXXXX. Quirk, not applicable. Elementary school, Tobigari Elementary. Middle school, Genjitsu Junior High. Emergency contact, +81 XXXXXX. Shota. Shota mulls over his decision. The hero course is composed of 40 students, and he'd always been picky when it came to his selection. It'd be preposterous to consider Yui granted acceptance based on nothing but the number of robots a student defeated. A minimum total of 40 points has to be reached first. Then, other factors were taken into account to weed out the students with the best potential for heroism. 5 spots were reserved for the recommendation students, and 35 were left to Shota and his colleagues. There had been students written off for their academic standings, others for their less than substantial behavior before the test, and a few for the way they answered their essay questions. Shota's a logical man, always has been, and when it came to choosing who was accepted into the hero course, he was no different. A hero with a too kind heart, who bleeds liquid gold, is a liability. A hero who's no more than his mask, no more than the narrator of their journey, is a liability. There's a fine line between too much and none at all. Izuku Midoriya towed that line. Watching his performance was enough to come to that conclusion. At first, he'd loitered around, before sufficiently taking down a 3-pointer with a rickety blade, snarling as he did so. Then he'd picked it apart, playing with the frayed wires and cutting through the metal. Later on, Power Loader would mention that it was this odd behavior that gave him the knowledge concerning the robot's essential wirings, bundled behind their glass eyes. What was deemed as a wasteful use of time was the reason he was able to take down the 0-pointer. And what a sight it was! A downright horrifying sight. Watching a tired, measly-looking boy climbing a robot well over 50 meters with nothing more than a switchblade and resolve. Shota nearly called off the exam when Midoriya fell off the robot, using a single arm and makeshift grooves to keep steady and hang off the robot's head as he slammed his hands into its eyes. He could see the spark of the wires as he yanked them carelessly, see the blood and burns crawling up to Midoriya's elbow. He could see that smile, demented in nature, rabid. It blazed with excitement as the robot spun, shaking him off like a flea. It wrinkled his eyes and made him look alive, staying plastered on his face even as the robot crashed with him still holding onto the edge. It must have been the devil's smile. Izuku Midoriya passed with an impressive 63 points. Shota saw his capability, can still seize it when his eyes slip shut. Shota sees potential like he sees landscapes, a lake and a field like the reflection of a person's self and mind. Izuku Midoriya can be refined, as hesitant as Shota is to admit it. The issue is, Shota's never stared at a lake with water so muddled he might as well call it a swamp. Shota prefers clear waters and reflections, being able to make a sure judgment at a glance. He only bolsters what he deems as true potential, a pretentious mindset but a needed one. The current brand of heroism is half-hearted mediocrity at best. Shota will be damned to not teach students with a drive to win and save, a drive to truly protect. He sees it in these young children desperate for that glory. He grows it, flowers that bloom around their lake's edge. He makes them all the more pretty, like a gardener strengthening a barren land. Bad seeds only grow to rot others. Midoriya is a painting of crimson lines, and Shota's yet to know if they dignify blood wept or blood spilt. Anomalies, muddy water, wilted filters, and crimson paintings, they're dangerous. Shota doesn't know Midoriya, can't gouge out how dangerous he might be. To teach him, to grow him, to swim through his waters. It's a risk. Crimson paintings are portraits of monsters. I hope you didn't forget who you were before you came here too, Shota. Damned rat bastard. Shota pinches the bridge of his nose. He is logical, is factual, is objective. Izuku Midoriya is strong, is smart. He smiles at death. Izuku Midoriya fights and saves. His waters are muddled. Izuku Midoriya is capable, he has potential. His portraits are crimson-colored. Izuku Midoriya is human. Izuku Midoriya is a monster. You'll never get anywhere with that quirk, freak. Izuku Midoriya is human. Izuku Midoriya is a monster. Stay away from him. He takes away your quirk. Nothing good can come from that. Shota Izuku Midoriya is human. Izuku Midoriya is a monster. You'll have to fight. Harder than anyone else. Do you understand, Shota? Shota Aizawa Izuku Midoriya is human. Izuku Midoriya is a monster. We made it. Izuku Midoriya is a monster. Izuku Midoriya is human. Shota glances at the essay again, at the words written by a boy with bruised knuckles and chipped teeth. If all humans are evil, then villains are heroes. If villains are heroes, then heroes are villains. It is a line that has been marred, blurred, poisoned. A world of false smiles, of sweet words cherry-picked from the blooming trees that always die too soon, is born. And heroes are villains, so villains are heroes. Understand that, and the concept of morality loses to the evidence of sin, of calamity and hate. Morality loses to evil. Because heroes are villains and villains are heroes. Everyone is evil. These are the words of a young boy with dead eyes and limp hair. A boy too tired to put up with everyone else's shit. A boy too damaged to heal. These are the words of a boy who's worked hard, broken tooth and nail, and trained relentlessly to make a place for himself in a world where he was given none. He paved his paths with his own calloused hands. These are the words of a hateful boy, a young boy that Shota remembers in the reflection of his mirror, glaring at him through the cracked glass. Remember where I came from, huh? Izuku. Izuku frowns at the bulky projector he was sent. What's with the look? Dabi asks. Doesn't the big-ass disc thing mean you've probably got in? I wouldn't get why, Izuku answers, still frowning. I only got 3 points. That wouldn't be enough to get me in. Then open it and find out. Akatani, Izuku reminds him dryly. Dabi clicks his tongue. I'm still surprised you're letting him come over. Won't his mums, question where the fuck you live and why it's musty as fuck? Izuku rolls his eyes. We're picking him up, dipshit. And Akatani knows better than to spill shit to his mums. How old is he anyway? Dabi asks, deaf to Izuku's words. 9. Damn, Dabi whistles. And his mums are letting him come on his own? Isn't that fucking dangerous? It can be, Izuku replies, stretching his arms. That's why we, he emphasizes, are picking him up. As in, his mums are dropping him off at the park and going on a little date. I promised to have him back before 6. Wait. It finally dawns on Dabi. We? Like me and you? No, me and the other fucking person in this room. Izuku deadpants, sparing Dabi an unimpressed glance. Dabi's light-hearted expression droops. I'm kind of, not supposed to leave this place in broad daylight. He waves an arm, the roses and skulls flexing. The whole supposed to be dead thing. Izuku doesn't know much about Dabi, but he knows enough. His name is not forgotten but mourned. He has fought abuse with his little fists until the world around him became nothing more than skies of pluming smoke and streets of raging fire. And then, in the aftermath, he ran and left behind a skin suit and memory to bury instead of a body. When were you proclaimed dead? Dabi stiffens, put off guard. Izuku rarely asks questions. Doesn't feel the need to. Dabi has secrets he swears he'll take to his grave. So Izuku rarely asks questions. It helps that Dabi's quiet too. Quiet when staring at Izuku's scars. Quiet the day Izuku came home with fangs for teeth. Quiet the other time Izuku came home with stitches crawling up his calf and painkillers in hand. Nice and quiet. A man to help heal his wounds instead of digging into his skin to kill the parasite itself. 14, he answers, tone clipped. Izuku hums, and you've altered your appearance quite a bit, the whole tattoos, healed scars and all. The likelihood of you being recognized is ridiculously low. Now, he folds his arms. You are going to leave this house to pick up Akatani with me. You won't have to meet his mothers if you'd rather. Dabi still looks apprehensive. Izuku draws his gaze to the ground. I'd honestly feel safer if you came with, he admits. I know I'm capable or whatever, but Akatani is young and would our real... Okay. Dabi cuts him off, cheeks flushed purple. His blood flows slower than others, thicker and darker. He stays cool and keeps his blood sugar levels high. His fire doesn't hurt then. Everything but his flames is sensitive to heat, his skin, eyes and organs. A body made to wield ice. But his fire is blue, hot enough to feel cold. If his blood is thick, the fire is forced to eat through it first, before it reaches his skin, hurting him. Izuku looks up, still mildly embarrassed at his confession. Okay, you fucking twerp. I'll come with you to get the kid. Izuku's lips quirk, the barest curl of a smile at its edges. Thank you, B. Fuck off. Hey there, Akatani. Izuku waves, jogging up to him. Akatani beams upon seeing him and runs his way, slamming into his legs and wrapping his arms around Izuku's middle tightly. Izuku, much to his chagrin, was rather small, a product of malnutrition and his mother's genes, he supposes. Akatani, on the other hand, was aggravatingly tall for someone so young, stopping at Izuku's shoulders despite the age difference. Aniki, Akatani squeals happily, giggling before pulling away. His three mothers approach, all wearing those same soft smiles Izuku found comforting. Hello Yuko-sama, Mika-san and Ayako-san. Izuku bows to all of them politely. Yuka smiles and returns the bow. Hello there, Izuku-kun. Mika walks up, always waiting patiently for Izuku's eyes to focus on her before ruffling his long, messy locks. And how are you doing? Ayako asks kindly when Mika steps away. Fine, Izuku answers simply. What about you guys? Oh, same old, same old. Mika responds fondly. Little Miku wouldn't stop talking about how you applied to the hero course. Izuku blushes. Ah yes, I really only did it for his sake. I don't plan on accepting the admission should I get admitted. It's all of your own will, Yuka reminds him, and Miku knows that. Right, Miku? She turns her gaze to her son, who nods his head quickly, still by Izuku's side. Aniki said that when he agreed to apply, good then, we don't want to force Izuku-kun into doing anything out of his comfort zone. She's stern with her words, and Akatani straightens a little. Oh, don't worry about it, you. Ayako gently swats her arm. Anyways, it's almost 4:30. We should go before we miss the dinner reservations. She directs her next sentence to Izuku. Please take care of him. Of course. Mika loops her arms with her wives and Izuku and Akatani bid goodbye before they hurry off to the train station. Let's go. Izuku prods Akatani's side gently. I'd also like you to meet my roommate. You have a roommate? They start walking. Through the shortcuts he'd found over time, Izuku's sure they could make it to his house in half an hour, giving them an hour of time together before he'd have to leave to make it home on time. Yeah, he should be around. Izuku trails off, glancing over at the crowds to spot a familiar head of ink-black hair. Dabi looks awkward, back hunched over as he slumps beside the wall of a random building, eyes glancing at every passerby nervously. There, Izuku nods in his direction. Akatani follows his line of vision and immediately scurries over. Paranoid, Dabi had dressed in a too large collared trench coat and a black mask hiding the lower part of his face. He looked inconspicuously conspicuous, shady despite hiding his scars and tattoos. Are you Aniki's roommate? Akatani asks immediately, startling Dabi, who slams his head against the wall. Izuku snorts, coming up by Akatani's side. Dabi glares at him, gently rubbing where he'd hit the concrete. But Izuku's amusement doesn't dwindle. Yes, he is. Izuku answers for him. He's also pretty stupid, but, you know, we can't choose the best of them. Akatani giggles and Dabi's gaze hardens. That's enough, Dabi warns. Let's just get back to your house. I hate being out when there's daylight. Mikumo. Am I on the screen? Mikumo freezes up, going rigid as the familiar face of All Might shows up. The hologram is startlingly realistic. Aside from the few grainy spazzes here and there, colors vibrant, like what's floating directly in front of him was real. Less than a year ago, that smile, big and toothy and bold, would have made him happy. He'd feel giddy, latching onto every word, dreaming of a what-if where he was a hero by his side. The symbol of peace, the symbol of justice, the symbol of fallacy. Aniki scowls, eyes narrowed as All Might embarrasses himself on screen, stumbling over his words. The fuck? Dabi, Izuku's really cool roommate, whispers. He has these incredible tattoos and everything. The tattoos hid the parts of his skin that were red and bumpy. The healed scars, Izuku said, though they looked different than the scars his Aniki had. Dabi's were super big and stretched over too much skin, but Mikumo thinks they're awesome. Dabi said they reminded him that he was real, that he made it. Mikumo understands. Scars mean that you survived, and Mikumo's survived plenty. Do you want to sit through this? Aniki turns to Mikumo, wearing an expression of muted anger. His tone is concerned, though. It makes Mikumo's heart swell to know Aniki is worried about his feelings. People don't worry about those too often. Mikumo nods, the voice of All Might like background noise as he explains something about work or whatever. I want to know if you got in. Doesn't matter who's delivering the news. Well, you did outstanding on the written test. All Might praises, sounding cheerful. His tone doesn't let up even as he says, but, at a practical skills rating of 3 points, you, of course, failed. Failed? My Aniki failed. Mikumo can't help but feel disappointed. Yui. They have to be morons to fail him. Even if Aniki didn't get enough points. He's more of a hero than any of you could ever be. All his life, Mikumo believed heroes were superstars, these greater-than beings. Until he meets All Might, the All Might, who leaves him on a rooftop with nothing more than a broken heart. He thought they were nova stars, unreachable, until he met his Aniki. A boy who's like him, who's been hurt and hurt and hurt. A boy who takes his broken heart and fits in pieces of his own until it's mended. Who redefines what it means to be a hero. His hero. Grounded. In reach. In vision. There. His. But wait. Mikumo looks up to where the hologram has yet to disappear. There's more to it. Then why mention the failure in the first place? Aniki mutters. All Might tells them about rescue points. Mikumo doesn't understand entirely. He hadn't been there for the exam. But he does get one thing. His Aniki saved someone. Someone else, someone who needed it. Everyone's hero. But his first. So take your rescue points, the judges all agree. They saw another foundational skill of heroics in you. All Might smiles. Midoriya Izuku. 63 points. Izuku slumps, still frowning despite the news. Yui is now your hero academia. All Might dissipates and Aniki stares at where he floated. Passively. Mikumo is looking up at him, red eyes alight with glee. You got in. He squeals, pulling Aniki in for another hug. You got in. Dabi gently thumps Aniki's shoulder. Good for you, Zu. Aniki awkwardly pats Mikumo's back. He's never been good at hugs, not that Mikumo minds. His Aniki was special to him, awkwardness and all. Eventually, he pulls away, shrugging off the arm on his shoulder. I'm not accepting the offer. He reminds them all sternly, grimacing when Mikumo wilts a little. Remember the deal, kid. Even if I got in, I would say no. Being a hero just isn't it for me. Mikumi disagrees. Aniki is his hero. The person he saved during the exam's hero. Probably Dabi's hero. He's better than all the other heroes, with their blind optimism and wide, tooth-rotting, sugary smiles. But Aniki doesn't believe that, he never will. So instead, resigned, Mikumo nods. You're still going to Yui, right? He questions, voice small. Aniki picks up the envelope and pulls out a single piece of paper. Yeah, kid. Still going to Yui. Izuku. Izuku flops face first into the couch pillows. Dabi snorts. Dropping the kid off made you that tired? Fuck off. Izuku is always tired. Tired, tired, tired. His bones feel like lead. Everything feels hollow but heavy. Always tired. Before Dabi can say anything, Izuku's phone buzzes loudly against the table. Groaning, he stretches to retrieve it, squinting at the screen. Is it the pretty blonde boy? Dabi looms over him. Izuku nudges him with his toe. I told you it's not like that. And yeah, it's Cam. Dabi wiggles his eyebrows and Izuku shoves him harder. You're on dinner duty. Fuck shit. Get started. It's not even 8. You take hours to toast bread. Dabi flips him off but heads over to the kitchen. Izuku rolls onto his back, feet dangling off the side of the couch, as he unlocks his phone to check Kaminari's messages. Kaminari is a new addition to his fucked-up life. A really sweet boy who jokes around too much, who updates him on the latest internet fad because Izuku never cares to come across them himself. A boy who says they're friends despite knowing so little about him, who doesn't know of his wickedness. Except, he knows he's quirkless. He knows he's the runt of the litter. And yet, electric boy, Mito, 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 did you get your results? Because I did. Midu, Kaminari, don't spam me. I wouldn't have to if you answered UR messages in time. EVR thought ABT that bro? Wow. Groundbreaking. Ik im the best. Now answer me. Did you get it? Did you get INN? Honestly? Duh. Then yes. But I'm declining. What? What? You are declining? Yes. Bro? You asked for honesty and I gave it. Heroics just isn't my thing. But classmates, classmates? I got into. Congratulations. I'm still not enrolling. But classmates will still be in the same school cam. Ik. Still sad. Why attend the exam if you didn't want to apply? A 9-year-old boy. _ winky face. Alright. I think. Honestly, I didn't think I'd get in. I only have 3 villain points. 3? Damn, how many rescue points did you get? 60. Ha! For saving you. That makes Susu much sense. Figured. You are really not gonna accept. Nope. Don't try to convince me otherwise. Ugh, finey. They'll see you outside of class anyway. You will. Oh, okay, also. Yes? Okay, so today. X. Nizu. Nizu stares at their laptop, and for the first time in what seems like millennia, is puzzled. Further than that, they feel disoriented. Izuka Midoriya, it seems, is a lot more interesting than they had initially anticipated. X. Subject. Admission into Hero Course. To Nizu at Yui.ja. From izu.hiksuga@heromail.com. To Nizu-sama, I am writing to you to decline my admission into the Heroics program, as I feel I am underqualified. Rather, I'd like to keep my acceptance for the general admission course. Regards, Izuku Midoriya, he/him. Applicant number 9027. Decline. In their many years running one of Japan's most well-known hero schools, not once has any student ever declined without the promise of admission into another heroics program. Even then, it was a dime a dozen. Statistically, students who graduate from Yui are the most likely to succeed later on in their careers as pro-heroes. Izuka Midoriya, it seems, has no interest in heroics. While that in itself isn't unheard of, Nizu himself can understand the dislike for such a wonderfully flawed system. It's rather odd he applied for the entrance exam in the first place. The wording of the short email too. I feel I am underqualified. Midoriya, the boy who'd single-handedly taken down the monster of a zero-pointer to keep another student from further injury, sees himself as underqualified. What is qualified, then? Not strength, not speed, not the innate need to save. Nizu had seen it when Midoriya spun his blade in between his fingers and stared at the robot with apprehension that left him in an instant the moment he caught sight of Kaminari, unfocused and trapped under the rubble, taking off without a second thought. Morality, maybe? Nizu is curious, always curious. Izuku Midoriya is an asset, undoubtedly. He's smart, irrevocably so, an intelligence that Yui should feed and water. It isn't a gifted talent, but rather something raw. Something that's been carved and crafted. The consequence of blood, sweat, and tears. Cultivated talent is not lost with old age, and that makes his intelligence all the more menacing. They swipe their paw across their tablet and the door swings open. Shota waiting with a fist raised, seconds away from knocking. Come in, they greet with a smile, already prepping a cup of tea. Care for a cup? Shota shakes his head politely, as he always does when Nizu offers, and waits, standing. Take a seat. He does, always a little unwillingly. Why did you call me here? He asks, always a little uncomfortably. It's become routine. Of all his staff, Nizu trusts Shota to deal with student affairs the best. He does not have the empathy that Hisashi does, nor does understand their perplexing way of thinking like Ryu or Namuri. But he's smart. Observant in a way that the other teachers aren't. He's shrewd and calculating with frightening foresight. So he is who Nizu prefers to call when handling more perplexing students. It's about a student. Nizu pauses, takes a small sip of their tea, and lets the anticipation build. Izuku Midoriya, they finally say, watching Shota's interest perk, has declined enrollment into the hero course. So has Inasa Yurashi. That isn't why you called me here. Blunt, said like a statement, not a question. Yurashi declined to enroll in Shiketsu High. Izuku Midoriya, however, accepted his enrollment into our general education course. The realization dawns, slowly, only expressed by the smallest twitch of his eyebrow. Exactly, Nizu places down their cup. Midoriya is the first student I've ever come across to do that, and quite honestly, I'm fascinated. Shota straightens. Fascinated? Yes. I have already sent an email, and within the hour Midoriya is scheduled to meet with me regarding his placement in UE. Of course, I will honor his wish of enrolling into general education over the hero course. But, Shota looks at them forebodingly. Well, admission into hero course. To izu.hiksuga@heromail.com. From Nizu@ue.ja. Dear Izuku Midoriya, I'm sure you're aware of how odd your request is. Of course, it is permissible and you will be granted enrollment in general education. However, considering this is the first time I've come across such a request, I would like to meet with you and your guardian in person before the start of the semester. While I'm aware it is short notice, does tomorrow at 3 in the afternoon work for you? I have a request I'd like to discuss. Regards, Nizu them, principal of UE High School. Nizu@ue.ja. Admission into hero course. To Nizu@ue.ja. From izu.hiksuga@heromail.com. To Nizu-sama, tomorrow is fine. My father is currently outside of Mizudafu on a business trip, however, and won't be here for some time. Does he need to be there in person? Regards, Izuku Midoriya, him. Applicant number 9027. Admission into hero course. To izu.hiksuga@heromail.com. From Nizu@ue.ja. Dear Izuku Midoriya, wonderful. A written slip is all that is needed indicating that your guardian gives you full autonomy over your decisions in the meeting. Your father does not need to be there in person. Regards, Nizu them, principal of UE High School. Nizu@ue.ja. Izuku. Izuku stares at the large, wooden door, hands in his pockets. The name Nizu is written in short, capital letters on a sleek metal plate, neat and orderly. When he squints, he can make out a small, hidden camera, right in the corner. It's far from noticeable, a gray only a shade lighter than the metal, slightly protruding, easily mistakable for a speck of dirt. He wipes over the spot with his thumb twice and salutes at it with 2 fingers when it doesn't wipe off. The door swings open. Welcome! Nizu embraces brightly, holding a small, ceramic cup of steaming tea. Seated in the chair across from them is another person, a man with black hair and slanted eyes. It takes Izuku a few seconds to put a name to the disheveled face. Underground Pro Hero Eraserhead. I hope you don't mind our guest, Nizu says, noticing Izuku's line of vision. Izuku shrugs. Very well, take a seat. They gesture to the chair across from Eraserhead. Izuku keeps his posture small and nonchalant, hunches his shoulders and pulls down the sleeves of his shirt. Adults don't fare well to his scars, to the lines and burns and stab wounds. They're either pitying, ridiculing, and mean, or they try to help. At least until Izuku tells them he's nothing but a freak. After that, they always run away with their tails between their legs. Care for a tea? Izuku shakes his head politely, focusing on the scar running over the stoat's eye. Don't make eye contact. Don't make eye contact. IMLO. Well, before we begin, I have a question. Just a run-of-the-mill one that I greet all my guests with. Nizu stands up on the desk and gestures to themselves grandly. Could you tell me what hybrid I am? Stoat. Izuku answers without hesitation. You look like a stoat. Their smile, toothy and fake, shifts into something more frightening, more hungry. Well then,